It was from the Cataclysm. I can illuminate the technological tree. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 326, 1420 MHZ. Hebelin followed Tao Yuda silently. Point, is the gap really that big? Hebelin recalled his last experience in the holographic theater. I vaguely remember that, before entering the holographic theater, the so-called degree of realism was marked on it. Point, among all the simulated scenes, the simulation of the Earth's environment has the highest degree of realism, 95%. This is also the reason why Hebelin chose to experience it. Point, it's just, looking back now, although the scenery I saw at that time was extremely stunning, there was always an indescribable feeling. Point, perhaps this is the breath of freedom that academician Tao said. Just a 5% difference can reflect such a complex difference. Hebelin suppressed his doubts and turned his head to look into the distance. Point, the main port of Earth was open, and the unfathomable ships slowly sailed towards the endless deep space outside the port. Point, facing the direction of the port was a planet with a yellowish earth color. That was their destination, Ross 2. The new home of mankind. Point, Ross 2. Central city. LV Yongchang sat in his office, looking at the projection screen with satisfaction. In the blue sky, long rainbows streaked across. Each long rainbow represented a Zuanvi. After 242 years of turmoil, running around, and war, human civilization finally got a stable development environment again. Ding ding ding. A shrill alarm sounded in his office. In just a moment, the originally bright office was covered with a blood-like red. The next moment, a holographic projection was projected in front of LV Yongchang. Warning. Unknown signal detected. Signal source, Ross 154. Signal frequency 1420 MHZ. In the blood-red holographic projection, the black handwriting was particularly shocking. LV Yongchang's originally relaxed mood instantly dissipated. He stood up from his chair abruptly, his eyes full of horror. 1420 MHZ communication frequency. It has always been the signal band for humans to search for information about extraterrestrial civilizations. The reason is very simple. 1420 MHZ is the frequency of a famous spectrum line emitted by neutral hydrogen atoms. The 21 cm spectrum line. Is the most common and abundant element in the universe. Every advanced civilization that has developed to a certain level will be extremely familiar with this property. On the other hand, 1420 MHZ belongs to a relatively quiet area for radio signals in this signal frequency band. The intensity of various background radiations is almost the smallest. Therefore, if you want your own signal not to be drowned by the noise of celestial radiation and to be received by advanced civilizations that have developed to a certain level, 1420 MHZ is an excellent signal frequency choice. And now, a signal of this frequency was actually transmitted from the direction of Ross 154. What this means, I guess there is no need to say more. Thinking of the abnormal brightness phenomenon more than 60 years ago, at this moment, Lu Yongchang only felt trembling all over, and a chill ran down his back. Without any hesitation, Lu Yongchang gave the order directly. Stop all work. Notify Zaozuji. The human fleet is in a first-level combat readiness state. All troops enter radio silence immediately. Earth port. As a shrill alarm sounded on the public communication channel, the open port in the distance slowly closed. At the same time, the blue flames at the tails of several unfathomable ships that were about to take off quickly extinguished. Red warning lights began to flash. What's going on? Bilin, who was born after the Proxima battle, was stunned for a while. Due to the lack of necessary experience, his brain came up with the answer after a moment of stagnation. It seems the fleet is in danger. Bilin, as the familiar voice sounded in the team's communication channel. A huge force came from his side. Even with the help of electromagnetic boots to stabilize his body, he was still pulled by this force and staggered. He barely stabilized his body, and after attaching the electromagnetic boots to the ground again, he turned his head and looked to the side. Academician Tao, seeing A familiar person. Hebelin's panic suddenly decreased a little. He asked hurriedly, Academician Tao, what happened? Why, Tao? You looked extremely serious, without a smile on his face. This is level 1 combat alert. Usually, it will only sound when encountering other civilizations. Listening to the voice coming from the headset, Hebelin subconsciously held his breath as Tao Yuda's voice fell. A series of huge holographic projections unfolded in the air. Warning, unknown civilization signal detected. All ships. Level 1 combat readiness. Unlike Tao Yuda, a veteran, he has never experienced such a thing since he was born. Then, what should we do? Thinking of the Proxima battle recorded in historical documents, his voice trembled slightly, and he whispered, what should we do, Tao? Yuda turned around and walked quickly towards the command center. Commander, Zhao Ziji is still on the earth. Let's go to the command center. After a pause, Tao Yuda's voice sounded again. This time, his voice was full of solemnity and helplessness. Be prepared. The stable life of mankind may end before it even begins. Earth A. Room next to the command center is Zhao Ziji's office and lounge. As the tactical commander of the human fleet, Zhao Ziji did not go to the central city with Lu Yongchang. He still stayed on Earth. Even compared with the central city, the quality of life on the starship is several levels lower. This is to prevent various unexpected situations, whether it is internal or external. As long as the flagship is still there and the ternary optical quantum supercomputing center is still there, humans still have hope of making a comeback. At the moment, when the 1420 MHz signal came, the alarm sounded in the office in the central city and this office at the same time. Looking at the bright red warning words in front of him, Zhao Ziji's face changed slightly. Then, he sighed deeply, with a bit of fatigue and helplessness in his eyes. Is the war about to start again? As he spoke, he unlocked the electromagnetic absorption device on the chair. 0. Contact Professor Lu. Before he finished speaking, Lu Yongchang's voice came from the speaker. Human fleet. Level 1 combat readiness. All troops, enter radio silence immediately. Zhao Ziji did not speak, and walked to the door in silence. 0. Start the wake up procedure. Wake up all combat readiness personnel. In addition, speaking of this, Zhao Ziji paused. All starships, weapon systems are all unlocked. Target, Ross 154. Chapter 327. 2 sentences. Hebelin followed closely in the footsteps of Academician Tao Yuda, and rushed towards the command center. Along the way, he saw countless familiar faces. There are seniors from Earth and peers from Proxima Centauri B. Like him, all his peers from Proxima B followed behind those seniors like followers. In fact, the expressions on everyone's faces are very similar: uneasiness, fear, and a little bit of excitement. As for the seniors who had experienced the Battle of Proxima Centauri, their faces were full of solemnity and pain. The situation was urgent, so everyone didn't say hello and just hurried towards the command center. When passing by a porthole, Hebelin glanced out curiously. This glance made him freeze on the spot. Outside the portholes, battleships began to change direction one after another. The material reserve ships, home ships, and engineering ships sailed away from Ross 154. At the same time, a faint blue electric arc slowly condensed at the battleship's muzzle. This is a sign that the plasma weapon has completed energy accumulation. Next, with just one command, cannonballs composed of high temperature plasma will blast directly in the direction of Ross 154. In addition to plasma weapons, Hebelin clearly saw that the Type 2nd coil gun on the belly of the nearest Golden Crow battleship had begun to turn its muzzle. The direction the muzzle is pointing is naturally the Ross 154 in the distance. The faint excitement in Hebelin's heart completely disappeared. He suddenly realized that war seemed to break out in the next second. How close? Tao Yuda's call came. What are you doing standing still? Follow up quickly. Hebelin's quickly withdrew his gaze and jogged a few steps to keep up with Tao Yuda's pace. At this moment, the expression on his face was somewhat close to that of Tao Yuda. Ross 2-star Central City. Lu Yongchang stared at the holographic projection in front of him. 0. Try to see if you can decipher the content in the signal before he finished speaking, the holographic projection screen had already changed. A line of Chinese characters appeared in front of him. Professor, there is no need to crack it. Zero said calmly, this message uses our public communication code. Even, it's in our language. Yongchang did not speak, but stared blankly at the line of text in front of him. Dear scientific and technological civilization, hello. The message was very short, only 11 words including punctuation point, but these 11 words made Yongchang's heart fall directly into the ice cave. On the opposite side, there is definitely an advanced civilization whose technological level far exceeds that of human beings. Don't say anything else. Secretly mastering the communication codes and texts used by humans without humans. Being aware of it is no longer something that a second level civilization can do. Yongchang swallowed lightly. What should he do at this time? No matter what, just open fire. What a joke. Facing an advanced civilization that doesn't know the details, especially after the other party shows a tendency to communicate. To rashly start a war. And start a war, isn't this the same as lighting a lantern in a latrine, looking for shit and death? Only what should he do now? Yongchang's eyes were full of confusion. According to the dark forest theory he deduced when he was on Earth, this unknown advanced civilization should directly take action to exterminate the weak human civilization. After all, in his opinion, the solar system and the Proxima galaxy were attacked by the dark forest of advanced civilization after their coordinates were exposed. On Lizzo far. What this advanced civilization has done seems to be completely inconsistent with the laws of survival of the universe in his mind. Before he could figure it out, Zero's voice sounded again. Professor, a second message has been sent from Ross 154. Yongchang was stunned. So fast. When he was stunned, Zero had already cast the information content on the holographic interface. Little guys, don't be nervous. I don't mean any harm. Yongchang looked at this short sentence and took a deep breath. What on earth does this advanced civilization want to do? After thinking briefly, he turned and walked out of the office. Zero, notify all scientific researchers in Central City and head to the port immediately. Let's return to the ship. The moment he walked out of the office, Yongchang was secretly grateful. Fortunately, only one city has been built so far, and not many people have moved. If this information had appeared more than 10 years later, the human condition would have become even more passive. As a scientific research area, the construction of the central city was the most difficult, and it only took 2 years in comparison. The difficulty of building residential areas has dropped by countless times. More than 10 years are enough to build a city cluster on roster that can accommodate all humans. By then, almost all humans will be living on Ross 2. Facing the enemy so close at hand, they didn't even have time to evacuate. The next day 24 hours have passed since the first message was sent. During these 24 hours, the advanced civilization on the opposite side did not make any move. Not only did he show no trace of himself, he also failed to send a single message. It looks like it's like waiting for a response from human civilization. Although it sounds a bit outrageous, this idea came to Yongchang's mind. In the command center of Earth, everyone, the specific situation has been introduced. Yongchang glanced around and said in a deep voice, now, we need to do a simple analysis of this advanced civilization. Hearing this, almost all the researchers present showed a tangled look on their faces. The reason is simple. Only relying on 2 sentences, a total of 27 words including punctuation, to analyze an advanced civilization. Is this difficulty a bit too exaggerated? In the command center, there was a dead silence. Yongchang shrugged. Let me start first. First of all, in the first sentence, it calls us a respectful technological civilization. That is to say, in the eyes of the other party, we belong to the technological civilization. As he said, Yongchang chuckled. Maybe it's a bit like nonsense, but its underlying meaning is that in addition to technological civilization, there are other types of civilizations in the universe. For example, biological civilization, like the Zerg in the movie. As he said, Yongchang shrugged. Forgive my poor imagination, I can't imagine more types of civilizations at the moment. With the examples given by Yongchang, The eyes of the people present gradually became active. Tao Yuda spoke first. Professor, it's still the first sentence. The other party used the word respect, although the possibility of courtesy cannot be ruled out. Is there a possibility that in the eyes of the other party, we are also not easy to mess with? Chapter 328 Response. Tao Yuda's words echoed in the command center. LV Yongchang frowned and said after a moment of silence, "You mean the other side is just a first level or second level civilization like us?" "Yes, this possibility cannot be ruled out." Tao Yuda nodded and said in a deep voice, "No, that's not right." Bilen's voice of objection came from the side. "Academician Tao, according to your statement, what does the second sentence mean? Why does the other side call us little guys? Isn't this contradictory to the previous sentence?" Tao Yuda's mouth corners slightly raised, and he said softly, "In my opinion, this is a deliberate trick arranged by the other side. The purpose is to confuse our judgment. But how can you be sure that the first sentence is not a trick?" Bilin asked directly without any hesitation. Tao Yuda's expression suddenly stagnated. This is indeed a problem. LV Yongchang, who was in the first place, sighed slightly and waved his hand helplessly to interrupt the argument between the two. This is the chain of suspicion. Just two short sentences can cause a series of endless questions. Okay, in this regard, I suggest that we temporarily identify the other party as a civilization that is not much stronger than us, and, for some reason, the other party's war power should be greatly reduced. In other words, it is a third or fourth level civilization in a broken state. LV Yongchang's conclusion immediately attracted everyone's attention. Facing everyone's puzzled eyes, he explained softly, "Everyone should have understood what Tao Yuda and Bilin said. There is a huge contradiction between these two names. From the two names, we can see the caution of the other civilization. On the other hand, from the other party's second sentence, we can see that the other party discovered our attempt to attack Ross 154 at the first time, and we have not found any traces of the other civilization until now. The interstellar probe next to Ross 154 did not find anything unusual. Based on the above 2 points, we can roughly draw a conclusion. The other party should be an advanced civilization whose strength has been greatly damaged due to the influence of unknown factors. This so-called unknown factor may be a war or a civil strife." Everyone nodded in agreement with a look of realization in their eyes. Fang Zhu frowned and suddenly said, "Yongchang, if we have to consider the name, shouldn't we also pay attention to the other party's self-proclaimed name? The other party uses I instead of we. Does this mean that the other party is an individual of advanced civilization? If it is just an individual of advanced civilization, can we?" Speaking of this, a cold light flashed in Fang Zhu's eyes. LV Yongchang instantly understood what Fang Zhu meant. At this moment, his heart beat violently. If it is really like Fang Zhu said, the other party is just an individual of advanced civilization, then humans, with their huge fleet, may really be able to. But soon, he suppressed the throbbing in his heart and shook his head slowly. "No, I don't recommend doing this before the other party has completely revealed their malicious intent. If the other party is only a level 3 civilization, we may still have the strength to fight. But if it is a level 4 or even level 5 civilization, I don't think we can win by relying on our numerical advantage. Think about our current starships, and then think about the starships of the Proxima civilization in the past. The gap between the level 1 civilization and the level 2 civilization is so big." Fang Zhu nodded silently, with a trace of regret in his eyes. If a starship from a high-level civilization can be sunk or captured, the development speed of human civilization will surely increase a lot in an instant. Now, it's the second question. LV Yongchang shrugged and spoke again. "How should we understand what the other party said about having no ill intentions? We can't believe them," Fang Zhu said at the first time, thinking about the fate of the solar system and the Proxima galaxy. "I don't think a strange advanced civilization can have good intentions towards us." LV Yongchang pondered for a moment and nodded gently. "Then how should we respond to the communication initiated by this advanced civilization? Ignore it, or respond positively. The moment the question was raised, the expressions of everyone present were moved. The first to speak was academician Ko Liang K. I think we can't respond to the other party's communication. This will bring us some unpredictable consequences. Such consequences may be fatal to human civilization. Fang Zhu's voice also sounded. Since the other party has chosen to communicate with us, we should take the opportunity to understand the other party's information. We know too little about the universe. The moment Fang Zhu's voice fell, LV Yongchang's eyes moved slightly. This is not wrong. The current human civilization has too shallow understanding of the universe. If we can use this opportunity to learn some basic information about various civilizations in the universe, I think it will be of great help to the subsequent development of human civilization. Thinking of this, Lu Yongchang stretched out his hand and pressed it in the air. Everyone, be quiet. The voices of debate in the command center quickly died down. Try to get in touch with the other party first, Lu Yongchang said calmly. No matter what, we need a chance to understand the civilizations in the universe. Otherwise, the situation of human civilization will only become more difficult in the future. His remarks brought the debate to an end. Even Ko Liang K nodded silently and agreed to the proposal after hearing the reasons given by Lu Yongchang. An hour later, a message was sent from Earth, flying directly towards Ross 154, which is 5.8 million kilometers away. The message content is simple. Hella, just 2 words, not even punctuation. Lu Yongchang stood on the podium, staring at the holographic projection in front of him. In the holographic projection, there is a real-time image of Ross 154 from the interstellar probe. 19.33 seconds later, looking at the image in front of him, that had not changed at all, Lu Yongchang's brows suddenly wrinkled. Calculate the time the other party should have received the signal. Why is there no response? Time passes minute by minute. 20 seconds later, a piercing alarm sounded in the command center. Professor, a signal from Ross 154 at 1420 MHz was received. Lu Yongchang took a deep breath. Coming, the other party responded. Hello, little guys. I have been following you for a long time. Chapter 329, No malicious intent. With just one sentence, the atmosphere in the command center instantly turned cold. At this moment, an ancient advertising slogan even sounded in Lu Yongchang's mind. My heart feels cool and my heart is soaring. A long time. What does this mean? Fang Zhu's slightly hoarse voice came. Could it be that the other party has been paying attention to us since the beginning of the Earth? If that's the case, the level of technology on the other side. He didn't finish his sentence. But everyone present knew that this meant that from the opposite side, human civilization was as humble as ants on the roadside. Perhaps because of the response, a steady stream of complicated messages came from the direction of Ross 154. According to your time calculation, it should be 64 years ago that your detector disturbed my sleep. Use the star system that is about to be destroyed as an information transfer station. This is a very good and cautious approach. In this universe, it is right to be cautious. Lu Yongchang took a sharp breath. What did he see? In order to hide its own coordinates, the previous efforts of human civilization are as clear as a piece of white paper to the other party. Not only Lu Yongchang, but at this moment, the command center was already in chaos. Quiet, Lu Yongchang looked at the holographic projection in front of him with an ugly expression. 0. Did the other party send other messages? Professor, there is no new information. Cut off all signal interfaces. Lu Yongchang gave the order without any hesitation. Start the self-test program immediately. Focus on checking all the data returned by interstellar probes in the past 64 years. The signal interface has been cut off. Zero's voice sounded again. System self-test is in progress. Looking at the self-test progress bar in the holographic projection, Lu Yongchang's eyes were full of horror. Something big happened. For interstellar civilizations, the difficulty of achieving long-distance hacking is tantamount to reaching the sky in one step. As long as the other party doesn't receive the information you send, you won't be able to hack into the enemy civilization's computer system, no matter how powerful you are. 4. Example, no matter how powerful a hacker is, he cannot hack into a computer that is not connected to any network from a distance or out of thin air for interstellar civilizations. Before communication is established, both parties are like computers without access to the internet. But all this will change completely with the establishment of the communication system. This is also what Yongchang is worried about 64 years ago. The detectors sent by humans were invaded by this advanced civilization. The other party even discovered the information transfer station carefully set up by humans, and thereby learned human language and mastered human calculation units. What a terrifying thing, thinking that during these 64 years, human civilization has lived under the surveillance of the other party. Layers of cold sweat oozed from Yongchang's back. Detection completed. No potential hazard has been identified. Hearing this, Yongchang breathed a sigh of relief. He raised his hand, wiped the cold sweat from his forehead, and sat down on the chair behind him. Click. At this moment, the sound of the electromagnetic absorption device seemed particularly loud. Professor, the other party has sent another message. Do you want to accept it? 0. Asked in a calm tone. Yongchang didn't speak for the first time. After thinking carefully, he asked softly, 0. If the other party attempts to hack, can you detect and stop it? What is the probability of success? After a short wait, Zero's response came. Based on simulation calculations, I'm 99.9% sure to prevent the other party's hacking behavior. Yongchang raised his eyebrows. A trace of surprise flashed in his eyes. So high. Yes, Professor. Zero said again. I have full home field advantage, and can even physically cut off the source of the hacking signal. That low. Yongchang thought for a moment and then said, open the signal interface and receive the information sent by the other party. Don't be nervous. I just learned some basic information with the help of the detectors you sent, and I didn't tamper with your central computer system. If you don't believe it, you can test the central computer system. Believe me, I mean no harm. Looking at the Chinese characters appearing in the holographic projection, Yongchang sneered. Is this no malice? You have secretly learned all the basic information, and you still say you have no malicious intentions. When the dog heard this, he would shake his head. Although he thought so in his heart, Yongchang still carefully edited a bunch of new information in a respectful tone. Dear advanced civilization, I'm sorry that we disturbed your rest. We believe that with your ability, you should not bother to take action against our small second-level civilization. We have a few questions that we would like you to answer. Who are you? What level of civilization does it belong to? What do we need to do? Sorry for any offense. Yongchang, these questions, isn't it too straightforward? Fang Zhu frowned and asked in a low voice, will it cause dissatisfaction on the other side? After experiencing the previous dialogue, the weight of this unknown civilization in everyone's hearts has been infinitely elevated. No way. The opponent has this strength. Before humans discovered him, he had already figured out everything about humans. Once you annoy the other party, human civilization, I guess, will not have any good fruits to eat. Yongchang slowly shook his head. No, since the other party chooses to communicate with us, it will definitely tell us some necessary information. As he spoke, he pressed the send button in front of him. Tens of seconds later, the familiar 1420 MHz signal came from the direction of Ross 154. Interesting, you actually know the civilization classification system. It seems that you must have encountered other civilizations. Let me guess. Have you just experienced a war? In the holographic projection, Chinese characters pop up one by one. Yongchang's face changed slightly. Yongchang. Fang Zhu turned his head suddenly, with a look of panic in his eyes. He lowered his voice and murmured in an extremely hoarse voice, how about we leave this star system? No. Rush, we'll talk first. Yongchang squeezed out a few words through his teeth. Be prepared for attack and evacuation. Upon hearing this, Zhaozi, who was sitting next to him, straightened his back instantly, and his face became a little more serious. He slowly stretched out his hand and pressed it on the holographic projection in front of him. As long as there is any abnormality, as long as he gives an order, the human fleet will launch the most powerful attack on Ross 154 at the same time, except for the attack starships. All other starships will enter the forward 4 state. The direction of travel is random. As for the purpose, naturally it is to preserve the last fire for human civilization. Haha, when I say this, you must be nervous again, right? Believe me, I won't take action against a small second level civilization. Chapter 337th level civilization. The lines of Chinese characters in the holographic projection caught everyone's eyes. Yongchang looked pale and subconsciously wanted to get up, but was firmly sucked to his seat by the electromagnetic absorption device point. Even if the central computer system is not compromised, even if they are not living under each other's surveillance, however, in the face of this unknown civilization, human civilization at this time is still like a naked lamb. Without any privacy at all point, he couldn't even imagine what the mental state of this advanced civilization was like during these 64 years. Is it with the mentality of teasing ants, or is it with some other twisted mentality? Yongchang didn't dare to think about this problem carefully. Ziggy, wait a minute. Yongchang took a few deep breaths, suppressed the panic in his heart, and then spoke to stop Ziggy from pressing the attack button. Point like Yongchang. Ziggy's eyes were sunken at this time, his face was pale, and there were even large beads of cold sweat on his forehead. But there are still differences between the two. There was a crazy and fierce look in Ziggy's eyes, like an animal driven to a dead end. Full of madness, that chooses and devours others. The madness of wanting to take a bite of the opponent's flesh even before death made Yongchang tremble slightly in his heart. After hearing Yongchang's voice, the madness in Ziggy's eyes diminished a little. Professor? His voice was extremely hoarse. Yongchang shook his head dryly. It's useless. If you act rashly, it will accelerate the destruction of mankind. Ziggy was silent for a few seconds and then lowered his raised hand. He leaned forward hard and fell suddenly on the back of the chair. He stared blankly at the ceiling of the command center and muttered to himself, then, what should we do now? Yongchang also fell silent. He looked at the holographic projection in front of him in ecstasy and smiled bitterly. Currently, there is only one choice before us. Go on and listen to what the other person is talking about. Since he kept us, he must have a purpose. Turn off the weapon system. Yongchang took a deep breath. Facing such an existence, our weapons are useless. Ziggy pondered for a moment, sighed, then weakly raised his hand and pressed a button in the holographic projection. Attention. All units, disarm all weapon systems and stay put. After the words fell, outside the portholes, the muzzles of the Golden Crow battleship slowly retracted. The plasma cannon projectile launch tube flashing with a faint blue arc also slowly extinguished. Tens of seconds later, the 1420 MHz signal came again. 0 quickly received it and displayed it in front of everyone. Very good, I see your sincerity. In that case, let me introduce myself. Yongchang subconsciously held his breath. Finally, we have to know the other party's true face. Level 3 civilization, level 4 civilization, or that unimaginable 5th level civilization. Two-dimensional creatures, currently in the 7th level of civilization, were born in the Triangulum galaxy 5 billion years ago. You can call me painting. Hiss, fuck, what the hell, my dear mother, got, for a moment, there were waves of exclamations in the command center. Yongchang's pupils trembled slightly, and he looked at the holographic projection directly in front of him with a dead expression. 7th level civilization, two-dimensional creatures, Triangulum galaxy. Each of these words constantly stimulated Yongchang's tense nerves. He panted hard, trying to take in more oxygen to keep his body calm. Why? How could this happen? His hands trembled slightly, and he shouted in a low voice with difficulty. Level 7 civilization. This is human civilization really not worthy of living in this universe. Before Yongchang's brain could recover, a new line of Chinese characters appeared on the holographic projection directly in front of him. In order to show my sincerity, in the next 30 seconds, I will show my true face, and you can observe it with the help of a detector. The moment he saw this line of words, Yongchang's eyes suddenly widened. He subconsciously unlocked the electromagnetic absorption device and stood up from the chair. Quickly, bring up the images of those 3 interstellar detectors, because He was so excited, Lu Yongchang's voice even wandered on the edge of breaking point. He even put the panic in his heart behind him. What does a 7th level civilization look like? Why did they fail to discover the existence of Ross 154 after 64 years of continuous observation? What do two-dimensional creatures look like to humans? At this moment, questions appeared in his mind. At this moment, he used all his strength to open his eyes wide. At this moment, all his attention was focused on the holographic projection in front of him. If you hear the truth in the morning, you will die in the evening. Zero moved quickly. Almost at the same time, the picture from the interstellar probe was transferred to the holographic projection directly in front of the command center. Ross 154, as usual, tried its best to exude weak warmth into the cold universe. Looking at the picture without any abnormalities, Lu Yongchang swallowed hard. Bang. 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 The clear and rapid heartbeat filled his ears. Suddenly, a strange phenomenon suddenly occurred. A grey color appeared on the surface of Ross 154, which was originally dark red. No, to be precise, it was not grey. It was a void. It was just that the human visual organs could not distinguish its color, and the human brain could not recognize its existence, which caused it to appear grey in human senses. The grey matter surged out from the inside of Ross 154. In just a moment, it wrapped half of the star in it. In the holographic projection, half of the star stayed quietly in place, emitting warm light outward. The other half was wrapped in the grey matter. There was no light emitted, and no radiation seeped out. It was like this half of the star disappeared in the universe. After wrapping half of the star, the grey matter stopped extending and stayed quietly in place. Under Zero's control, the interstellar probe lens zoomed in quickly, trying to carefully observe the true face of this grey substance. The lens zoomed in. The surface was extremely smooth. There was not a single bump. No matter how the probe measured, it could not measure its thickness. It was like a scroll without thickness, gently wrapping up half of Ross 154. LV Yongchang stared at the picture in front of him in a daze. A strong sense of disobedience rose in his brain. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 331, Galaxy Bridge. The universe in which human beings live is three-dimensional. Length, width, height. These three basic elements constitute the universe and explain everything in the universe. Any object or life can be described with the help of these three indicators, no matter how thin it is. Even if it is only 1 millimeter, 1 micron, or 1 nanometer, it still has a thickness and can be measured. But now, what is in front of everyone is the countless abnormal data returned by the detector. It is like a virtual painting, staying quietly on the surface of the star. But everyone knows that it is by no means an illusion. At least half of the energy emitted by Ross 154 was completely absorbed by it. This scene full of contradictions stimulated the nerves of everyone present. 30 seconds flew by. Under Lu Yongchang's gaze, the grey substance shrank rapidly. In less than a second, it shrank from the size of half a star to a small canvas with a length and width of 100 kilometers. Later, it retracted into Ross 154 again. Ross 154 has also returned to its original appearance. It was as if what just happened was an illusion. The 1420 MHz signal flickered again. Little guys, have you seen enough? A line of text appears in the holographic projection. Lu Yongchang suddenly came back to his senses. He opened his mouth, but he didn't know what to say. There are so many doubts in my heart, but I don't know how to express them. After struggling for a while, Lu Yongchang raised his hand, slowly tapped the holographic image in front of him, and typed out a few lines of text. Dear 7th level civilization, I apologize again for disturbing you not long ago. If you need anything, please just ask. Human civilization is willing to help you. Shortly after the message was sent, the human fleet received another response from painting service. What can a mere 2nd level civilization do for me? Avenge me? There was a strong air of contempt in the message. But Lu Yongchang didn't care. After all, For a 7th level civilization, human civilization is not even as good as ants on the roadside point. The fact that the other party is willing to talk is already a great reward point, but the last sentence made him widen his eyes. Revenge? The other party actually mentioned revenge? Could it be that Yongchang's breathing was slightly rapid, and he responded quickly after careful consideration? You just mentioned revenge? As powerful as you, can you also get hurt? The 1420 MHz signal flashed rapidly. Haha, I'm just a 7th level civilization. Yongchang's eyes changed quickly, and he asked again. Are there many civilizations above level 7 in the galaxy? How did you get injured? But this time, nothing happened to the 1420 MHz signal point. This two-dimensional creature named Paint suddenly became cold and never responded to the messages sent by humans. Half an hour later, looking at the ROS 154 image returned by the detector, and then looking at the chat history that stopped at the last sentence, Yongchang frowned and sighed softly. Professor, what should we do now? KO. Liang K's voice came from the side. Are you leaving or staying? Yongchang thought for a moment and slowly shook his head. Can't leave. At least, we can't act rashly until the other side speaks. The fleet will stay where it is, and all construction will be suspended. 0. Keep monitoring and detecting ROS 154. Thinking of the terrifying existence in ROS 154, Yongchang swallowed the words that came to his lips and rephrased them. If the other party sends another message again, information, notify me immediately. Then, he reached out and rubbed his stiff face and said in a deep voice, next, it's time for us to sort out the information obtained from this exchange. First, the opponent is a two-dimensional creature. There is no doubt about it. Yongchang reached out and called up several data returned by the detector. No matter what detection method we use, we cannot detect the thickness of the opponent. Of course, it's also possible that our instruments are too backward. Speaking of this, Yongchang shrugged. I personally prefer the former. In addition, it can be found after slowing down the picture. The other person can contract and extend their body with ease. As to why it doesn't wrap around the entire star, my guess is that it takes a lot of energy to do that. At least, for the current situation, it is an act that outweighs the gains and losses. At the end of the conversation, the other party mentioned the word revenge. Combined with the above conjecture, we have reason to suspect that it is in a state of injury at this moment, and it needs ROS 154 as its energy source. This is also the reason why ROS 154 was so bright. Does anyone have a problem with that? After speaking, Yongchang glanced around the crowd point. Seeing that no one objected, he spoke again. Okay, on this basis, let's analyze the other party's words. The other party claims to be a 7th level civilization, a two-dimensional creature, and was born in the Triangulum galaxy 5 billion years ago. LV. Yongchang paused for a moment and spoke again. The Triangulum galaxy, the third largest galaxy in the local group, is about 2.95 million light years away from the Milky Way. We assume that the other party has curvature navigation technology, which can greatly shorten this long journey. But how did the other party cross this empty area close to vacuum? During the voyage, the other party hardly received any material supplements. Then, why did it spend so much energy to come to the Milky Way and then be beaten by the so-called more advanced civilization? Bilin in the distance suddenly raised his right hand point. LV Yongchang was slightly stunned, then nodded and said, you say, Bilin straightened his expression and said seriously, Professor, I need to correct something. It's not that you can't get material replenishment during intergalactic navigation. Hearing this, LV Yongchang raised his eyebrows. Oh, tell me in detail. Bilin organized some words in his heart and spoke again. According to our observations, there is a galaxy bridge between the Triangulum galaxy and the Andromeda galaxy. This galaxy bridge is mainly composed of neutral hydrogen. According to current observation data, the length of this galaxy bridge reaches 782,000 light years. By analogy, we have reason to suspect that there is also such a structure between the Triangulum galaxy and the Milky Way. It's Just that we haven't discovered this galaxy bridge yet. LV. Yongchang nodded thoughtfully. If this is the case, it can be explained. Chapter 332 Circumstellar Particle Collider. It's just, until now, we have not been able to analyze the purpose of the other party's behavior from his words, nor can we analyze the authenticity of his words. LV. Yongchang sighed softly. At present, there are no loopholes in the other party's words. Then, he shrugged, but it's not a big problem. After all, even if it is a seriously injured level 7 civilization, we can't mess with it. Hearing this, Fang Zhu and others smiled bitterly. Point. Although the words are hurtful, they are indeed true. Point. The current human civilization can only live in fear under the shadow of the other party, praying that the other party can show mercy. Time passed bit by bit. Point. An hour, a day, a week. The 1420 MHZ signal seemed to disappear and never appeared in the world of human civilization again. Point. It was as if the level 7 civilization in Ross 154 quietly left. Point. Until a month later, LV Yongchang sat in the office of Earth, frowning and looking at the holographic projection in front of him. Point. On the projection, there was an image of Ross 154 sent by the interstellar probe. Point. Looking at the dark red light emitted by this red dwarf star, LV Yongchang sighed softly. I don't know what this 7th level civilization means, he murmured to himself. Our development has been stagnant for a whole month. Yes, since the two-dimensional creature painting stopped talking, human civilization has been living in the shadow for a whole month. Point. It's not right to leave, and it's not right to stay. Yes, Fang Zhu's voice came from across the desk. Who knows what this two-dimensional creature's concept of time is like? If the 5 billion years it said is true, I'm afraid the other party will be stunned for tens of thousands of years. If this is the case, human civilization will sooner or later die here. LV. Yongchang pursed his lips, and a hint of contemplation appeared in his eyes. Wait. Another month. He made up his mind. 1 month later, we will send another inquiry message to the other party. If there is still no response, then we will prepare to leave this star system. The material stored in the past 2 years should be enough to support us for another voyage. Fang Zhu pondered for a moment, nodded and said, that's the only way. I hope this level 7 civilization doesn't care about our actions. The office fell into silence again. Ding ding ding. After a month, the sharp alarm sounded again in LV Yongchang's ears. Professor, 1420 MHZ detected an abnormal signal. The source of the signal is Ross 154. Here, LV Yongchang's face was stern. He reached out to unlock the electromagnetic absorption device on the seat, stood up and said, 0, gather all personnel, assemble at the command center. Interesting. Little guys, let's chat again. Calculate the time. I haven't talked to little guys like you for more than 4 billion years. Looking at the 2 lines of text in front of him, LV Yongchang took a deep breath. Talk to it. This is our only choice, and the only role we can play on him. As he said this, he pondered for a moment, and reached out to press the holographic image in front of him. Dear 7th level civilization, hello, we are very willing to be a listener. A signal quickly came from the direction of Ross 154. Listener? I didn't expect that I, a two-dimensional creature, would be reduced to telling stories to a 2nd level civilization. If those guys from the pastoral school knew about this, it would be embarrassing. From the text message sent by the two-dimensional creature, one can clearly feel its inner reluctance. Point. A gleam of light flashed in Lu Yongchang's eyes. He quickly captured the keywords in Hua's words. Dear Hua, what is the pastoral school you are talking about? Is it a faction in the universe? The two-dimensional creature, Hua, was silent for a while, as if he was considering something. A few minutes later, lines of text appeared in front of everyone again. Forget it, this thing is not a secret, and it's no big deal to tell you about it. In this universe, advanced civilizations are mainly divided into 3 factions. First, the sweepers. Second, the pastoral faction. Third, the neutral faction. LV Yongchang opened his eyes wide and subconsciously slowed down his breathing. This kind of knowledge is not something that humans can obtain by working behind closed doors. By understanding the factions in the universe, humans can have a basic understanding of how the various civilizations in the universe get along with each other. The dark forest system derived on Earth is obviously not very applicable to the 7th level civilization in front of him. While LV Yongchang was thinking, new texts were still constantly presented in the holographic projection. Let's talk about the sweepers first. It is composed of a group of crazy 8th level civilizations. In order to break through the so-called 9th level civilization, they prepared for billions of years. During these billions of years, they made a circumstellar particle collider. LV Yongchang took a breath of cold air. Circumstellar particle collider. What a large-scale particle collider this is. Not only LV Yongchang, but also the Earth was in an uproar. The noisy discussion continued in the command center. The particle collision device has a special feature. The larger the size, the more energy is consumed for acceleration, and the closer the speed of the accelerated particles is to the speed of light. 99% of the speed of light, 99.9% of the speed of light, 99.99% of the speed of light. It seems that there is only one decimal place difference, but the energy level contained in it is like a world of difference. Every increase of 1/9 means that the energy contained in the particle has increased by an order of magnitude. According to the special theory of relativity, when the number of 9s after the decimal point reaches 142, the energy contained in the particle is equivalent to the total energy of the annihilation of the Milky Way. When the number of 9s after the decimal point reaches 182, the energy contained in the particle is equivalent to the total energy of the annihilation of the observable universe. When the number of 9s after the decimal point reaches, LV Yongchang shuddered slightly. He couldn't imagine how many 9s could be added to the so-called circumstellar particle collider. This group of lunatics actually planned to use the entire universe as fuel to charge the circumstellar particle collider. They believe that by doing this, they can reproduce the scene of the Big Bang and recreate a new universe. Then, take advantage of this opportunity to master the technology to advance to level 9 civilization. Madmen. A bunch of crazy men. Speaking of this, the tone of the two-dimensional creature, Hua, became much more irritable. Even Ross 154 in the distance seemed to be flickering. Lu Yongchang stared at the holographic projection in front of him in a daze. He swallowed his saliva and spoke carefully. Then, what about the pastoral school? Chapter 333, Sweepers and Pastoralists. Us. We and the sweepers are mortal enemies. The holographic projection screen flashes, and information from two-dimensional creatures constantly appears on it. The pastoral sect is mainly composed of some dimensional beings. The purpose is, of course, to stop the crazy behavior of the cleaners. For this reason, a war broke out between us and the sweepers. A war that lasted for billions of years, in which countless stars were extinguished, and countless galaxies were shattered. The injuries on my body were caused by the sweeper branch in the center of the galaxy. Damn it, when they sent me here, they didn't say there were 4-dimensional shock bombs on the other side. Perhaps because it touched a sore spot in his heart, the originally aloof two-dimensional creature seemed a bit talkative at this moment. Why? I don't know if I can wait for support. By the way, there is also a neutral faction. They, forget it, don't talk about it, they are just a bunch of cunning people who only want to preserve their own civilization. Visible to the naked eye, the tone of painting has become extremely heavy. Forget it. Why am I saying this to you? A second level civilization, and you don't understand. If you have any questions, please ask quickly. I'm a little sleepy. Lu Yongchang and Fang Zhu looked at each other. Both of them saw the horror in the other's eyes. What should I say? Fang Zhu swallowed softly and asked in a low voice. Lu Yongchang's eyes moved, and he subconsciously lowered his voice and said, since the other party has said so, let's hurry up and ask, who knows how long it will sleep next? As he spoke, Lu Yongchang tapped the projection quickly with his fingers and asked his own question. Dark forest. Haha. Such a situation does exist in the universe. However, most of them appear among low-level civilizations below level 3. Why? How could this happen? When he saw these lines of text, Lu Yongchang couldn't help but exclaimed. If the dark forest only exists among low-level civilizations, as the painting said, then how did the solar system become what it is now? Lu Yongchang looked uncertain and quickly asked the other party his inner questions. It turns out that the dying star system was your home galaxy? I looked over there not long ago, and there were obvious traces made by the sweepers. If I remember correctly, it should be called the Star Eater. As for the reason why they did this, haha, it should be to force me out. The expression on Lu Yongchang's face became increasingly ugly. I'm sorry, what happened to human civilization was an unreasonable disaster? What kind of weapon is this Star Eater? He asked again. How can a star be destroyed so easily? Arms. Haha, I'm overthinking it. That's not a weapon. It's just an advanced tool that absorbs stars to replenish fleet energy. It can both replenish energy and drive me out of the star. It is the most profitable approach. After reading these lines of text, Lu Yongchang's raised right hand slowly dropped. He lowered his head and remained silent. Is it just a tool to replenish energy? Being weak in this cold universe is indeed the original sin. Any more questions? If not, I'm going to continue to rest. In addition, I recommend that you stay in this star system. When I'm here, you can develop science and technology without any worries. The Milky Way is not peaceful now. Lu Yongchang suddenly came to his senses and exhaled a breath of depressed air that was held in his chest. I didn't expect that human civilization would collapse because of such a bullshit reason. As he spoke, he shook his head helplessly. After suppressing the depression in his heart, he said in a deep voice, everyone, I suggest that you continue to develop in this star system. The words came out. Amazing. I object. Zaoziji said bluntly. Lu Yongchang looked with some surprise at Zaoziji, who was sitting next to him and had been silent. In my memory, this was the first time the two had a dispute. What's the reason for the objection? Lu Yongchang was not angry. Instead, he asked Zaoziji the reason in a calm tone. Professor, I think the other party is hiding a lot from us. Ziji spoke urgently and said excitedly, the sweepers want to be promoted to the 9th level of civilization. Don't the pastoralists not want to be promoted? From the beginning to the end, he avoided talking about the goals of the pastoralists and instilled in us the idea that the sweepers were full of evil and what it calls slippery centrists. What's more, the demise of the solar system and the Proxima galaxy is largely due to this pastoral two-dimensional creature. Regarding Zaoziji's words, Lu Yongchang didn't show any surprise on his face. Of course I understand what you said, only, if what the other person says is true, it's even more dangerous to travel to other star systems now. By staying here, we will have more time for development, and even have the opportunity to obtain some information about the sweepers and pastoralists. Ziji's eyes were full of struggle. He hesitated and said, but this is tantamount to seeking the skin of a tiger. Yes, it's like courting death. LV Yongchang nodded and admitted, but this is the information that humans need most. It can help us avoid many dangers. Let's do this. He sighed softly and glanced at everyone. The issue of whether to stay or leave will be decided by secret ballot. 10 minutes later the voting results appeared in the holographic projection. Stay. 61.8% go. 34.2% abstain. 4%. After the voting results came out, LV Yongchang thought for a long time and sent a message to painting again. Why do we have to fight against the sweepers? For the dreams of creatures in every dimension. We hope to return the universe to the 11th dimension and return to that beautiful pastoral era. Every civilization can live in harmony, without competing for resources, without intrigue, and the sweepers want to completely destroy this universe. Therefore, war is inevitable. LV Yongchang looked at the holographic projection in front of him with a strange look. Why do I feel a bit weird? Are all the people in the pastoral school idealists? Although he thought so in his heart, he still sent a string of flattering content. He in response, only responded with 2 words. Obviously, it didn't believe the flattering words sent by Lu Yongchang. Faced with the sarcastic reply, Lu Yongchang shrugged helplessly. Professor, the signal is interrupted. Zing. Announce the end of this conversation in an extremely calm tone. Chapter 334 Proxima 4th Holographic Cinema. The 1420 MHz signal disappeared without a trace point in the holographic projection. Ross 154 is still spreading its light to its sphere of influence as it was hundreds of millions of years ago, protecting every planet in the star system. Everything that just happened was like a mirror in the mirror apart from human civilization and painting. Perhaps only the cyanobacteria-like creatures on Ross 2 witnessed this scene. Liu Yongchang stood up from the electromagnetic absorption seat, looked at the quiet and cold universe in front of him, and let out a long sigh. Continue with the city building plan. Receive. 0. Responded to his request quickly as usual, and executed every order meticulously. The closed port of Earth slowly opened again. 1 after another. Zhuan 2 was adjusted to the corresponding position, waiting for the scientific researchers to board. A little further away, as the first level combat readiness state was cancelled, the light of the hull thruster at the tail of the Comet-class battleship Golden Crow gradually dimmed. Farther away, on the surface of Ross 2, in City 2, which was more than half in the construction progress, the mechanical arms and robots started moving again. Human civilization, at this moment, seems to be back on track. A few days ago. 2272. 11.3 Proxima Centauri Galaxy. Proxima Centauri b, city number 4. Because of the departure of the human fleet, the space available per person in the city has increased several times. Renfeng sat quietly in the courtyard in front of the door, looking at the old man beside him with slightly confused eyes. The old man's face is full of wrinkles. As if aware of Renfeng's gaze, the old man raised his eyelids with difficulty and coughed lightly. Zhao Feng, the old man called softly. The confusion in Renfeng's eyes gradually dissipated. Seeing the old man's turbid eyes with a hint of worry, he chuckled. Grandpa, what's wrong? Hearing Renfeng's voice, the worry in the old man's eyes diminished a bit. He withdrew his gaze and raised his head to look at the sky. On the high dome, crisscrossing pipes and bright headlights caught his eye. There was a trace of disappointment on the old man's face. Zhao Feng, he suddenly said, take me to a holographic theater. Ren Feng was stunned for a moment, and a bad premonition suddenly flashed through his heart. He was silent for a while, then stood up and said, okay, Grandpa, please wait. The old man is old, and walking long distances is already an extremely difficult job for him. Therefore, Renfeng kept a wheelchair at home in case of emergency. More than 10 minutes later, Renfeng pushed a wheelchair slowly down the street. As empty as ever. City number 4 is being designed to accommodate hundreds of millions of people. But according to the latest data released by YIE, there are currently less than 10 million people in the 4th city. It's no wonder that this originally bustling street looks so empty. Renfeng was thinking wildly in his mind while pushing the wheelchair. Zhao Feng, the old voice sounded again. Do you want to go to city number 1, Grandpa's question made Renfeng look startled. He hesitated for half a second and quickly shook his head. No, I don't want to. As promised, I will always be with you. Haha. The old man chuckled. That's enough. That's enough. You've wasted more than 60 years on an old guy like me. It's time for you to find your own life. Ren Feng did not speak, but still shook his head. Suddenly, he stopped in his tracks. Grandpa, we're here. Directly ahead is a huge building. Above the building, there are several large gilt characters written impressively. The 4th holographic cinema of Proxima Centauri. Renfeng let go of the handle of his wheelchair and walked straight to the glass door of the holographic theater. Please, show me your ID. A mechanical female voice sounded in his ears. Renfeng reached into his pocket and took out a card, scanning it in front of the scanner on the glass door. Drop, portrait. Scanning and comparison is in progress. Please do not move at will. A crisp reminder sounded, and a green beam of light emitted from the scanner in front of him. Portrait comparison successful. Ren Feng, your credit status is excellent. You can experience the holographic theater for free 3 times this year. This is the first time. Welcome. The closed glass door suddenly opened. A breath unique to the holographic theater, mixed with a cool breeze, came to my face. Grandpa, it's time for us to go in. Ren Feng took a deep breath, turned around, held the handle on the back of the wheelchair, and pushed the old man towards the door with a little force. The same scanning beam flashed across the old man's face. Drop, Ren. You and Ming, with excellent credit standing, and a retired member of the People's United Fleet, can experience the holographic theater unlimitedly. Welcome. Hearing this slightly high-pitched female voice, the old man's eyes showed a bit of nostalgia. Although he was just a handyman in charge of logistics in the fleet, he still enjoyed generous treatment. After he retired. I don't know what's going on with the human fleet now. Calculating the time, we should have arrived at Ross 154. The old man breathed the air in the holographic theater and recalled his time in the fleet. Grandpa, what do you want to watch? Ren Feng's voice interrupted the old man's thoughts. The old man raised his head with difficulty and glanced at the holographic projection not far away. His eyes were attracted by the line of Chinese characters at the top. Recently popular, scenery of the earth. Let's just scenery of the earth. I want to take another look at the earth. Ren Feng's heart trembled suddenly. Thinking of the old man's words and deeds today, his eyes suddenly became red. Okay. He suppressed the pain in his heart and responded in a low voice. Today's holographic theater is very empty. To be precise, the holographic theater is very empty every day. After all, the resources of these holographic images have not been updated for 60 years. No one wants to watch the same content day after day, year after year, except for some old people from Earth. It is precisely because of these old people that scenery of the earth can always dominate the top of the hot list. Ren Feng pushed the wheelchair to the room with the number 1 sign. This is a place dedicated to playing Earth View verification. Past. I wish you a pleasant viewing experience. A mechanical female voice sounded in the corridor at the same time. The closed door suddenly opened. In the large and bright room, there was a thin layer of soil. In the soil, there was a layer of fine and dense green grass. A path paved with blue stone slabs led from the door to the center of the room. Ren Feng looked at the extremely familiar scene in front of him, silently pushed the wheelchair, and walked towards the center of the room. The old man also showed some emotion in his eyes. This should be the 63rd time. Thank you for your hard work, Zia Feng. Chapter 335, A Confluence Across Time and Space. Ren Feng chuckled and shook his head. Probably the 64th time. You forgot that you also came to see the fleet once when it first set off. The old man was stunned for a moment, then smiled and nodded. However, the smile on his face looked particularly weak. Ren Feng also discovered something unusual. Compared with when he left the house, the blood on the old man's face gradually dissipated, and the look in his eyes gradually dimmed. His heart suddenly twitched. He hurriedly brought up the play menu and pressed the play button. Click. The sound of the door closing was heard. The lights then went out. The huge room was pitch black, leaving only the faint smell of earth and grass in the air. Suddenly lights lit up from around the room. Under the joint action of dozens of holographic projection generators, a huge blue planet appeared in front of the two people. There was just a pause, and the blue planet quickly zoomed in. In just a few seconds, the scene in front of him completely changed. Blue sky, white clouds, a small village. The village is not big, with only dozens of households. The village is surrounded by dense mountain forests. Directly in front, where the two of them were standing, was a flat piece of grass. The real grass in the room takes the realism of the image to a new level. Even though he had seen the same content countless times, and even though he knew very well that this was an illusory scene, Ren Feng still felt briefly dazed in his eyes when looking at the smoke-filled village in front of him. This is where I used to live. The old man's trembling voice came from the side. I remember. The first house on the left is the old Zhang's house. The building next door belongs to Liu Qi's family. Ren Feng nodded in agreement with the old man's words. For the past 64 years, he has accompanied his grandfather to the holographic theater every year, and every time, the old man said almost the same words. There is no other reason. This scene was filmed in his hometown. The progress of the screen advances slowly. Suddenly, the door of the first house on the left opened, and a little girl with a ponytail ran out. Following closely behind was an old man with grey hair. Haha. That's Zhang Man, the daughter of the old Zhang family, perhaps. because he saw his old friend. The old man became a little more excited. If I remember correctly, that little girl is now working at the Academy of Sciences, right? Hahaha. The old man took a deep breath and raised his wrinkled right hand to wipe the tears from the corner of his eyes. I wonder how she felt when she saw this scene. In the holographic screen, the door of the house next door slowly opened. He is also an old man with grey hair, different from the previous 63 times he watched the movie. This time, Ren Feng watched it extremely seriously. His eyes moved slightly, and he spoke for the first time while watching the movie. Grandpa, is this what you call Laoki? The old man in the wheelchair glanced at Ren Feng in surprise. Obviously, he was a little surprised by Ren Feng's questioning behavior, but then, the smile on the old man's face became fuller. Yes, that's Laoki. Back then, I had a really good relationship with them. Ren Feng hesitated for a while, but in the end he still couldn't suppress his curiosity. Then, why didn't you go find them after arriving at Proxima B? The old man's eyes dimmed a bit. Because they voluntarily gave up the opportunity to escape. While talking, in the holographic screen, two grey-haired old men were already sitting under the big tree at the entrance of the village, playing chess under the shade of the tree. This Ren Feng's breath suddenly suffocated. Why give up? Because this can improve the success rate of escape for future generations. The old man murmured to himself, even just a little bit. As he spoke, he raised his hand with difficulty and controlled his wheelchair to drive forward. Upon seeing this, Ren Feng hurried forward and wanted to give his grandfather some help. But he was stopped by the old man's firm eyes. Gradually, the old man came to the stone table under the big tree. At this moment, the three grey-haired old men seemed to have completed a convergence across time and space. Ren Feng stood there blankly, looking at the smile gradually filling his grandfather's face. He tried to open his eyes wide, trying to carve the scene in front of him into his mind. Time passes bit by bit. The holographic projection screen gradually dimmed, then brightened again. The first act of Earthscape is over, but the old man in the wheelchair still stayed where he was, without any movement. Ren Feng's heart trembled, and hot tears fell involuntarily from both sides of his cheeks. He quickly called up the playback control menu, ended the playback of the holographic projection, and ran to the old man's side in 3 steps at a time. Breathing stopped. Ren Feng sat blankly on the grass full of dirt, silent tears rolling down his face. This time, he no longer disliked the slightly damp soil in the grass. After dealing with his grandfather's affairs, Ren Feng returned home without leaving his home. Looking at the familiar layout in front of him, and then thinking about his situation of being alone, tears welled up from his eyes again. Zhao Feng. A familiar voice sounded. Ren Feng raised his head suddenly. It's a holographic image. In the holographic projection, the grandfather sitting in the chair had a smile on his face. Zhao Feng, when you see this video, I should have passed away. Thank you for your companionship over the past 60 years. However, Grandpa can only accompany you for 60 years. You have to walk the next road on your own. The words paused for a moment and then sounded again. With the existence of Yi, you will not have to worry about eating and drinking. However, this is a hidden danger after all. One day, if there is a crisis and Yi is no longer reliable, Grandpa hopes you can survive. Proxima Centauri B is, after all, a dying star system. If possible, I hope you can get out of Proxima B and find the human fleet. One day, bring my ashes back to the Earth. Haha, look at my brain. The Earth no longer exists. Then, take it back to the solar system. This is my only request to you, Grandpa. The holographic projection screen gradually dimmed. Bang. A faint voice came from far away. Perhaps because it was too far away, the sound seemed particularly dull and weak. The room was completely dark. No, that's not right. Ren Feng stood up suddenly. Where's the lamp? He relied on his memory to go to the window and looked out. It was still pitch black. Only the emergency lights provided a faint glow. Something happened. Ren Feng's expression changed slightly, and the sad incident was briefly forgotten. He came to his senses and used the light of the emergency light outside the window to find a flashlight from the drawer on the side. Turn on the switch. Powerful white light filled the room. What happened? Listening to the sporadic exclamations coming from the window, Ren Feng's eyes were filled with panic and doubt. Chapter 336 Zhang Zhenking. Ren Feng held a flashlight in his hand and walked out of the door cautiously. The flashlight model is very old. If I remember correctly, it should be a product around 20 to 10.60 years ago. Regardless of Ren Feng's persuasion, my grandfather resolutely purchased this nuclear powered flashlight that was said to last for 100 years. There is no other reason. The old man is worried about G. At that time, Ren Feng thought such behavior was ridiculous. Each city has 2 separate sets of fusion power reactors. Even if something bad happens, and 2 sets of fusion power reactors fail at the same time, artificial intelligence can quickly mobilize power from the city next door. Therefore, since he was born, he has never seen a power outage. But now, looking at the dark scene outside, Ren Feng took a deep breath. Grandpa. That's right. He subconsciously reached out and pressed the emergency button by the door. That's the button to ask for help. He recalled that the line was independently powered. Click. The sound of physical keys rang in my ears, but the familiar hologram didn't appear. Ren Feng's heart sank. Unexpectedly, even this line was out of power. Ren Feng stood at the gate in confusion, staring blankly at the faint light of the emergency lights in the distance. What should he do? Time passes bit by bit. Ren Feng's slow brain gradually started to work. City Central Control Center. A name popped into his head. Although I don't know what happened, I can't go wrong by going to the control center and taking a look. With this thought in mind, he took some stiff steps with difficulty and walked towards the deserted street. The sound of a window opening came from the side. Dude, you have a flashlight? Ren Feng was frightened by the sudden sound. He quickly turned his wrist and directed the flashlight's light in the direction of the sound. Hey, hey, hey. In the strong white light, a young man covered his eyes in pain and shouted loudly, "Brother, blind, blind." The man had dirty hair and an unkempt beard. Looking unkempt. It's you, Ren. Feng breathed a sigh of relief and quickly turned the flashlight to the other side. The young man's name is Zhang Zhenking, and he is his neighbor, a weirdo. Yes, this is Ren Feng's impression of Zhang Zhenking. He doesn't go out all year round. At least, in Ren Feng's impression, the last time this weirdo went out was a few years ago. Living supplies. Naturally, it is delivered to your door by a robot. As for what the other party was doing at home, Ren Feng had no way of knowing. Dude, where are you going? Zhang Zhenking grinned, rubbed his eyes, and asked loudly. Ren Feng came back to his senses, hesitated for a moment and replied, "City Central Control Center." Zhang Zhenking's eyes suddenly lit up. Control Center, dude, take me for a ride. Faced with Zhang Zhenking's request, Ren Feng nodded directly and agreed without any hesitation. The reason is also very simple. Walking alone in this dark city always makes me feel a little nervous. Wait for me to change clothes. Seeing Ren Feng nodding in agreement, Zhang Zhenking's eyes became more excited and he changed his clothes directly by the window. Seeing this, Ren Feng quickly moved the flashlight's light farther away. I said, "You don't need to be in such a hurry, right?" While talking, Zhang Zhenking had already changed his clothes. He held up his hands and rolled out of the window. "Why aren't you in a hurry? This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, Ren Feng. Let's go." Zhang Zhenking trotted to Ren Feng's side and pulled Ren Feng hard. "We have to hurry up. Who knows when this thing will return to normal?" Ren Feng was pulled and staggered. Looking at the extremely excited Zhang Zhenking in front of him, Ren Feng suddenly had a bad premonition in his heart. "You seem to be looking forward to this scene happening." Zhang Zhenking's eyes flashed a little. He nodded vigorously and said, "I have long wanted to visit the Central Control Center, but the door over there is closed. I don't have permission to go in. If it weren't for the fear of those guard robots, the labor and management would have pried open the door no matter what." Ren Feng, is this what normal people say? You sure that the door can be pried open? Zhang Zhenking, please, don't worry about these details. More than an hour later, City Number 4 Central Control Center. Looking at the building without any light in front of him, Ren Feng's eyes showed a bit of worry. Sure enough, even the Central Control Center lost power. What's going on? Ren Feng murmured to himself. Logically speaking, such a situation will basically never happen. It's hard to say. Zhang Zhenking's voice came from beside him. If my guess is correct, there should be a malfunction. As for the cause of the malfunction, you have to go in and take a look to find out. But we can't get in either. Ren Feng looked at the closed door and shook his head helplessly. Even without the guard robot, this alloy door cannot be pried open by two ordinary people. Hehe. Zhang Zhenking looked at the motionless robot beside the gate, his mouth corners gradually raised, revealing a somewhat crazy smile, who said, "We are going to go through the gate." As he said, he took Ren Feng to quickly bypass the gate and walk towards the side of the building. A few minutes later, here, Zhang Zhenking pointed to the ventilation duct in front of him and said softly, "It's here." I checked the information. This ventilation duct leads directly to the hall. Ren Feng, he subconsciously took a step back. "No, brother, what do you do?" He admitted that at this moment, he panicked. Zhang Zhenking smiled and said, I'm just an ordinary otaku." As he said, he squatted down and got busy. "You call this an ordinary otaku?" Looking at Zhang Zhenking's skillful disassembly of the ventilation duct, Ren Feng asked in a faint tone. Zhang Zhenking's movement suddenly paused. "Have you heard of a technical otaku?" The moment the voice fell, a crisp sound came from the ventilation duct. Click. "Okay." Zhang Zhenking clapped his hands with a smile. "We should go in." Ren Feng looked at Zhang Zhenking in front of him with a frown on his face. Of course he knew that he was a tech geek. But you are not a normal tech geek either. He took a deep breath and calmed down the complaining soul in his heart. "So, if you have this ability, why do you stay in this small Proxima galaxy?" Zhang Zhenking was stunned. Then he smiled with relief. "Too tired. I just want to live an ordinary life." Ren Feng didn't say anything, but just squatted down silently and got into the slightly spacious ventilation duct. Chapter 337. The situation is serious. Ouch. This is a ternary optical quantum computer. As soon as he got into the central control center, Zhang Zhenking grabbed the flashlight, quickly ran to the door of a room, and looked at the internal scene through the glass curtain wall in front of him. TSK, TSK, TSK. It's so beautiful. Ren Feng walked quickly behind him and followed his line of sight and looked in cold components. He couldn't understand the beauty in Zhang Zhenking's mouth. "Let's get down to business." Ren Feng urged helplessly. "When you came here, you said you could find the reason." Zhang Zhenking reluctantly withdrew his gaze, smacked his lips lightly and said, "Don't worry, I'll go check it out right away." As he spoke, he glanced around with the flashlight in his hand. "The top priority now is to restore power to the central control hall." Restore power. Ren Feng couldn't help but be stunned. "What are you going to do?" "I have checked the information before." Zhang Zhenking chuckled. "The central control center has an independent temporary power generation device. It is estimated that this time it is completely down. Otherwise, it won't be our turn to come in." Ren Feng, "Can this thing be found?" "You stay here, don't move around." Zhang Zhenking straightened his expression. "I'll buy you some oranges." The corners of Ren Feng's mouth twitched slightly. "Do you really think he doesn't understand this sentence?" "I'll just take 2 and give you the rest." Without any hesitation, he responded directly. Zhang Zhenking's eyes lit up. "You still want to eat too? You can soak the orange peel in some water and drink it." Ren Feng responded, "Tit for tat. Luzon once said that there is no such thing as 4 generations living under the same roof." "You actually know this joke?" Zhang Zhenking, who was exposed, was not embarrassed. He laughed and said, "This is an old joke from more than 200 years ago." Ren Feng shrugged. "Before discussing ancient culture, you should turn on the temporary generator first." More than 10 minutes later, a slight buzzing sound came from the side. Bright lights once again filled the entire central control center. Ren Feng, who was used to the darkness, subconsciously reached out and covered his eyes at this moment. He also felt what Zhang Zhenking felt not long ago. "How about it? Should I hold it in my mouth before he could adapt to the light. Zhang Zhenking's mean voice came from the side point. Renfeng opened his eyes with difficulty and subconsciously wanted to retort, but he saw Zhang Zhenking standing in front of the console with a solemn expression. He silently swallowed the words that came to his lips. What are you going to do now? Zhang Zhenking did not look back and looked seriously at the console in front of him. Next, start the optical quantum computer first, and then try to get in touch with other cities. I don't know what the situation is in city number 1, Zhang Zhenking muttered in a low voice. It's been so long, hasn't it been possible to get in touch with the human fleet? Obviously. As long as Zero takes action, these problems can be solved. Wait. Renfeng felt a little dizzy for a moment. Let's take it step by step. Can you start this optical quantum computer? No way. Zhang Zhenking responded confidently. I'm just an ordinary person. How can I operate this thing? Renfeng. There were so many things he wanted to complain about that he didn't know where to start. Don't worry. Zhang Zhenking waved his hand and said, this thing is the same as what is learned today. As he spoke, he took out a brick-like emergency response guide from the cabinet under the console. Looking at Zhang Zhenking, who was reading seriously, Renfeng suddenly felt a little tired. Is this guy really reliable? At this time in the Ross 154 star system, 8.24 light years away from Proxima Centauri b, the human fleet is facing the greatest crisis in history. The appearance of painting made Zero stop all unnecessary work. Including distress signals constantly coming from the direction of Proxima Centauri. Proxima Centauri b synchronous orbit. Dozens of satellites turned into wreckage, floating quietly in orbit, as if they had been attacked by something. The camera keeps looking down. Huge hemispherical buildings stand on the surface of Proxima b. Each hemispherical building is connected by several orbits. That's the Proxima b city cluster. A huge pit appeared on the periphery of the hemispherical building located in the center. Even the extremely solid hemispherical building was a little incomplete. The camera continues to zoom in. In the damaged areas, the ground was covered with broken steel bars and alloy fragments. You can even see some broken limbs and dark brown blood stains. The thick yellow atmosphere continued to flow into city number 1 through this huge hole. Fortunately, a large airtight facility has been built not far from the hole. It is said to be an airtight facility, but it is actually a huge balloon made of carbon nanotube material. After being inflated, the large balloon successfully plugged the leaking hole. Success. I don't know how long it took, but Renfeng, who was sitting beside him drowsily, was awakened by a cry full of joy. He raised his head suddenly and looked warily in the direction of the sound. In front of the console, Zhang Zhenking's face was filled with joy. In the machine room not far away, lasers flashed. A huge holographic image slowly appeared above the console. Seeing this, Renfeng suddenly jumped up and said, a Chinese quintessence, UTM, this is okay. Zhang Zhenking waved his hand casually, but the corners of his mouth kept rising. Hey, what are you talking about? Such a small matter is just a drop of water for me. It's just a quantum computer. Give me a manual, and I'll drive a starship for you to see. Renfeng looked at Zhang Zhenking with a strange face. It's past. Cough, perhaps. He noticed Renfeng's strange look, and Zhang Zhenking coughed awkwardly. Now, let's try to contact other cities first. As he said, he stretched out his hand and pressed on the holographic projection in front of him. As for Renfeng, he could only wait silently. Looking at Zhang Zhenking's fingers jumping quickly, Renfeng's eyes showed a thoughtful look. Am I too useless? Perhaps Grandpa is right. He should find a chance to go to city number 1. The situation is not good. Zhang Zhenking's tone was a little heavy. Renfeng's heart skipped a beat, and he quickly asked, what's going on? Zhang Zhenking shook his head, and the improper smile on his face completely disappeared. At present, in addition to city number 1, only city number 4 is online. That is to say, after so much time, other cities have not even restored the central control center. Then contact city number 1 first. Renfeng shouted anxiously. I tried. The other side has not responded yet. Zhang Zhenking sighed deeply, but the most serious problem is not this. The air circulation device is shut down. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 338, Powerless. Zhang Zenking's voice echoed in the central control center. What, Ren? Feng's pupils trembled violently, his Adam's apple moved, but only a short tone came out. He took a few breaths, and asked in a rough tone, how much time do we have, Zhang? Zenking glanced at the holographic image in front of him, his eyes showing a thoughtful look. If no measures are taken, about 24 hours, Ren. Feng, only this much time, Zhang. Zenking shrugged. I know you are anxious, but don't worry yet. I haven't finished speaking yet. There is an emergency oxygen supply device in city number 4. Hearing this, the anxiety on Ren Feng's face dissipated by half. He breathed a long sigh of relief. I say, Kit, can you say everything next time, Zhang? Zenking was silent for a moment and nodded, counting the emergency oxygen supply device. We should be able to hold on for another week, Ren. Feng's mouth twitched violently. 1 week? What can you do with that? Faced with Ren Feng's questioning, Zhang Zenking spread his hands and said helplessly, there's nothing we can do. We can only hope that the people in City 1 can repair 1, or contact the human fleet and let Zero take action. What if, Zhang? Zenking interrupted Ren Feng's words directly. If neither side succeeds, we can only wait to die. Ren Feng's breathing became rapid. He stared at Zhang Zenking in front of him, then turned his head and scanned the city's central control center with an extremely confused look. Is it over, Ren? Feng muttered to himself. Suddenly, as if he thought of something, he turned his head sharply and looked straight at Zhang Zenking. Can't you restart the fusion reactor? You have successfully started the optical quantum computer. It shouldn't be difficult to start another fusion reactor, right? Right. As he spoke, he reached out and grabbed Zhang Zenking's shoulder fiercely. Looking at Ren Feng's eyes full of expectation, Zhang Zenking showed a bitter smile at the corner of his mouth. He shook his head helplessly. It's a pity. It's impossible to do it. When Ren Feng heard this, he immediately got anxious. Why isn't there an instruction manual for that thing? As he said, Ren Feng pointed to the brick-shaped manual on the side. Zhang Zenking glanced in the direction of Ren Feng's finger, and then said with a strange look, first, I need to correct one thing. This thing is not an instruction manual, it is an emergency treatment guide. Isn't it different? Ren Feng's voice was a little weaker. Of course it's different. Zhang Zenking held his forehead with his hand. Forget it, it's not important. The point is that the fusion reactor is fully enclosed, and all maintenance work is done by robots and ye don't say there is no manual. Even if there is such a thing, it is not something that an ordinary person like me can handle. Then, are we just going to die like this? Zhang Zenking sighed for a long time. What else? As he said, he reached out and patted Ren Feng on the shoulder. Look at it more openly. Maybe things will turn around in a few days. The only thing we can do now is to turn on the emergency oxygen supply device. Okay, Ren Feng lowered his eyes slightly, nodded and responded softly. Then he turned around silently and walked towards the ventilation duct. Looking at Ren Feng's frustrated look, Zhang Zenking sighed again. Just as he was about to turn around and leave, a crisp reminder came from the control console in front of him. Beep. Zhang Zenking? Ren Feng, who was squatting in front of the ventilation duct, slowly turned his head. Did you hear any sound? What caught his eyes was Zhang Zenking's extremely excited expression. Yes, there is a response. Zhang Zenking stuttered and said, 1, City number 1, there is a response. More than 10 minutes later, Zhang Zenking and Ren Feng stood in front of the control console with solemn expressions. After more than 10 minutes of communication, they roughly understood the cause and effect of the incident. According to the explanation of the person in charge of City number 1. Just a few hours ago. Proxima B was suddenly attacked by an unidentified object. No, it cannot be said to be an unidentified object. It is more like a nuclear bomb. Nuclear bomb. Ren Feng looked at the holographic projection in front of him in disbelief. How is it possible? Hasn't this thing been eliminated by us a long time ago? In the picture, the face of the middle-aged person in charge was full of anxiety. Yes, a nuclear bomb. I know this answer is outrageous. At first, I didn't believe it either, but the test report at the explosion site shows that this thing is a nuclear bomb. Zhang Zhenking, who had been silent, suddenly spoke. So, do you think Proxima B was attacked by other civilizations? The middle-aged man's face changed slightly. After hesitating for a while, he nodded slowly. Yes, besides this, we can't think of any other possibilities. Zhang Zhenking nodded thoughtfully. That's right. For no reason. A nuclear bomb fell from the sky and blew a huge gap in city number 1. There should be no other possibility for this kind of scene, except the invasion of alien civilization. Besides city number 1, is there any other place attacked? Zhang Zhenking stared straight at the middle-aged man in front of him. If only city number 1 had an accident, one would not have been down. The middle-aged man's eyes twitched, and he sighed hard. There are still some important satellites. What about Zero? Zhang Zhenking did not give him time to breathe, and asked again. Why don't you ask Zero for help? I remember that the long-distance communication device should not be in the satellite, right? In this case, as long as Zero takes action, all cities should be able to return to normal quickly. The middle-aged man's face became more bitter. We have tried it a long time ago, but until now, we have not received a response from the human fleet. Ren Feng, who could not get a word in, felt a sinking feeling in his heart. Could it be that my grandfather really said it? Something happened to the human fleet. Zhang Zhenking's face changed slightly, but he still maintained basic calmness. So, what's your plan now? Our plan. Sorry, the middle-aged man in the picture looked guilty. If we can't contact the human fleet, we can't do anything about it. You should know that after the Academy of Sciences left, we didn't have the ability to do anything to the Proxima central computer. Restarting doesn't work. Ren Feng on the side suddenly asked. Seeing the strange looks the two people cast at him, he smiled and said, ahem, when my computer at home freezes, I always unplug the power and restart it. The middle-aged man laughed dumbly, shook his head and continued. Next, I suggest you look for the city's emergency oxygen supply equipment. If possible, go to some large hospitals, where there are large oxygen stations, which can keep you going for a while. Maybe we can wait for the response of the human fleet. The holographic projection slowly dissipated. The communication ended. Chapter 339. Because we are all human beings. In city number 4, in the central control center, tranquility returned again. Just compared with the original. The tranquility at this time was filled with a strong aura of death. Ren Feng raised his head and looked at the expressionless Zhang Zhenking beside him. So why can't you unplug the power and restart the central computer? Zhang Zhenking couldn't help but hold his breath. As he walked towards the direction of the ventilation duct, he explained angrily, that's one. Forcing a power outage and restarting will only turn you into a mess. The situation will get worse by then. At least now I'm down instead of disappearing. Ren Feng scratched his head with a smile and quickly followed Zhang Zhenking's footsteps. Ren Feng adjusted the brightness of the flashlight to the maximum and followed Zhang Zhenking towards the hospital. The city streets are incredibly empty. At this moment, Ren Feng even had an illusion. It was as if the two of them were the only two humans left in city 4. But soon, a rapid curse came from the residential building next to him. Ren Feng subconsciously stopped. Let's go, Zhang Zhenking said expressionlessly. We have to go to the hospital quickly. He hesitated for a moment, then spoke again. There are not many resources, and now is not the time for compassion to overflow. Ren Feng was silent for a while. He turned around and glanced at the building next to him again. Vaguely, with the help of the flashlight's peripheral vision, he seemed to see a figure by the window. He took a deep breath, turned around and shouted, if you want to survive, come with us to find oxygen supply equipment. Then, he smiled and said to Zhang Zhenking, let's go. Zhang Zhenking made no move, just looked at Ren Feng in confusion. Why do you do this? If They rob us, because, at this moment, we are all human beings. Ren Feng interrupted Zhang Zenking's words with a smile. This is the last lesson my grandpa taught me. Zhang Zenking thought for a long time and nodded slowly. Okay, I hope he is worth your efforts. After saying that, he turned around and continued walking towards the hospital. Ren Feng glanced at the residential building next to him again. There was no movement. Pitai shook his head. He has done what he should do, and at least at this moment, he has a clear conscience. Ren Feng took a step forward, preparing to keep up with Zhang Zenking. Brother, wait for me. A rush of footsteps came from the residential building. A smile appeared on Ren Feng's lips and he stopped in his tracks. One day later in the dark city number 4, shouts began to sound continuously. Under the light of a flashlight, several young people searched for usable oxygen supply devices from various places and transported them to the number 4 city central hospital. Along the way, young men of similar age hesitantly joined the queue. An old man with grey hair turned around and returned to his home, standing silently by the window, watching the figures running in the darkness. The crowd continues to grow, and the efficiency of collecting supplies also begins to improve. 7 days later, the final time limit has arrived. The human fleet still didn't respond. In city number 1, in the central control center, the middle-aged person in charge looked at the declining values in the holographic projection with a deathly expression. Professor Liu, did you really give up on us? The middle-aged person in charge laughed miserably. Then, he stood up, locked the door tightly, and struggled to move several huge oxygen tanks from the cabinet on the side. He greedily breathed in the last bits of oxygen in the air, trying to delay his use of the oxygen tank. The outside world is noisy. Cries and curses filled the entire city. Feeling the suffocation coming over him, the middle-aged person in charge slowly put on the mask. With trembling hands, he turned down the oxygen output. After taking a deep breath, he slowly closed his eyes. A drop of turbid tears streaked across his face and fell to the ground along the oxygen mask. At the same time, city number 4. An old man with grey hair walked to the street calmly. They looked at each other with relieved smiles on their faces. Finally, it's our turn. We were lucky enough to survive back then, but today it's our turn to pay. In the distance, inside the number 4 city central hospital. The oxygen supply facility made a hissing sound and slowly provided the minimum amount of oxygen into each sealed room. One young man's eyes were red. But he tried his best to suppress his breathing rate. Ross 154 star system. The moment the level 1 combat readiness alert was lifted, the familiar siren sounded in Liu Yongchang's ears again. 0. Liu Yongchang's expression changed slightly, and he shouted in a low voice, "What's going on?" The holographic projection quickly unfolded in front of him. Looking at the Chinese characters in the projection, Liu Yongchang couldn't help but froze on the spot. In just a few seconds, the vigilance in his eyes dissipated instantly, and his eyes became moist. 0. Rescue the human civilization of Proxima Centauri immediately. How many days have it been, Ren Feng murmured in a low voice. Living with low oxygen for a long time made his mind become a little blurred. It has been 10 days since the accident occurred. Zhang Zenking's calm voice came from the side. A trace of trance flashed in Ren Feng's eyes. How long can we last? 10 days. That's not bad. Ren Feng smiled weakly. 9, 8. Question mark. Ren Feng's trance suddenly cleared up. What the hell? Are you serious? Haha, just kidding. Zhang Zenking chuckled and said again, but it's almost over. I can probably last a day or two. Ren Feng fell into silence. Do you regret it? Zhang Zenking said again. No. Ren Feng's weak but firm voice sounded. You have also seen what those old people did. This is why human civilization can continue to exist. The moment the words fell, a dazzling light lit up in the room. Ren Feng subconsciously covered his eyes. After dozens of seconds, he slowly removed his palm and opened his tear-filled eyes with difficulty. The huge room was bright. The holographic image gradually appeared in the sky. He turned his head and glanced around him. He could clearly see the faces of everyone in the room. He looked toward the side window. Outside the window, there is light. Chapter 340 IT-039, Esme, kill me, Zeng, Zenking, Ren. Feng's voice trembled slightly, and he whispered in a low voice, is it back to normal, because of the sudden strong light stimulation. Zhang Zenking's pupils shrank rapidly. He didn't care about the tears that kept flowing in his eyes, and quickly got up and ran to the window. Swish, the window that was originally closed was pulled open. He hesitated for a moment and took a deep breath. The air has returned to normal. Zhang Zenking raised his hand, wiped the tears on both sides of his cheeks, and shouted loudly, everyone, we are saved. Rose 154 star system. LV Yongchang looked at the holographic projection in front of him with a serious expression. In the projection, it was the surveillance screen of city number 1. The originally prosperous city number 1 seemed to have been looted. The fire destroyed half of the city, and almost all the buildings were slightly charred. The wide streets were full of corpses. The camera gradually zoomed in. It can be clearly seen from the condition of the bodies that most people died of suffocation. A small number of people had serious external injuries. Considering the weapons in those people's hands, it is not difficult to imagine the chaotic scene at that time. The camera switched again. This time, it was a picture from the city's high altitude camera. A huge hole appeared on the edge of the dome structure in the west of the city. The hole has been filled with temporary repair devices, but the ruins nearby made Lu Yangchang's heart twitch suddenly. What happened? He clenched his fists tightly, and several blue veins appeared on his arms. Zero. What happened? Is it an alien civilization invasion? Lu Yangchang lowered his eyes slightly and asked in a very low voice. There was silence in the command center of Earth. Zhao Ziji beside him pursed his lips hard, with hatred flashing in his eyes. Professor, the cause of the accident is still being investigated. Zero's response sounded in the command center. However, a large amount of nuclear radiation residue was found at the explosion site. Nuclear radiation? LV Yangchang was stunned. In addition, several satellites in the orbit of Proxima b were destroyed. Zero continued. At that time, these satellites were directly above city number 1. An inexplicable sense of familiarity surged into his heart. Isn't this the attack effective type I electromagnetic cannon? Zhao Ziji's exclamation came from the side. Zero, check the wreckage of the damaged satellite immediately. LV Yangchang gave the order without any hesitation. A few minutes later, Zero's response sounded again. Professor, electromagnetic cannon projectile fragments were found in the satellite wreckage. As soon as the voice fell, a photo appeared in front of everyone. A piece of shrapnel about 10 centimeters. There was even a line of unclear handwriting on the shrapnel. Made in XXXX factory. 2037.5. Fuck. What the hell is this? The command center instantly rang with a national treasure. A vague memory slowly emerged in Lu Yangchang's mind. He swallowed lightly. This electromagnetic cannon can't it be the batch of projectiles we launched when we intercepted the asteroid? Zhao Ziji's face also became strange. In his impression, this batch of projectiles seemed to be launched by him personally. Professor, the time is just right. Zero quickly reminded. Fuck. This is a big deal. LV Yangchang muttered to himself. After all this trouble, we still cause the trouble ourselves. It's me. Kill me. He shuddered. Zero. How is the Proxima B city cluster, except for city 1? What about other cities? Zero replied. The situation is very bad. The damage to the satellite and city 1 at the same time caused a serious logical failure in 1. When the accident happened, the person in charge of city 1 sent us a large number of distress signals, but because it was in a first level combat readiness state, these messages were given the lowest priority. LV Yangchang's heart sank. It's broken. He knew the importance of 1 to the Proxima B city cluster. When did the accident happen? Zero responded quickly. 10 days ago. 10 days ago, the fusion reactor stopped working, and the city's air circulation device was shut down. In an instant, LV Yangchang's face turned pale. 10 days. If he remembered correctly, the city's emergency oxygen supply device could only last for a week. 10 days is enough to destroy the entire human civilization of Proxima. There's still people alive. When Asking this question, LV Yongchang already had the answer in his mind. I guess there are only a few lucky people left in the entire Proxima civilization, right? All the researchers present lowered their eyes with the same idea as LV Yongchang. They couldn't bear to look at the numbers in the holographic projection. As of now, there are still 2.131 million people alive. Zeros. Voice echoed in the command center in the holographic projection. A series of data appeared. LV Yongchang was stunned. It's not, because the number of survivors is too small, but too many. So many people. He straightened up suddenly and tried to stand up from the chair, but was once again pulled back by the electromagnetic absorption device. Hiss. The muscles on both sides of Lu Yongchang's cheeks twitched twice. Sooner or later, I have to dismantle this damn electromagnetic absorption device. Ignoring the pain in his body, he quickly turned his gaze to the holographic projection directly in front of him. With just one glance, he discovered the problem. 2.078 million people survived in city number 4. Are they all young people of the right age? A strange look flashed in Lu Yongchang's eyes. 0. What's going on? What happened in city number 4? Data is missing. Trying to get in touch with the survivors of city 4. Contact successfully made. Contact name Renfeng. Age 92. Graduated from the Central University of city number 4. Not yet married. Lines of information were flashed in front of everyone. At the same time, the image of a yellow-skinned young man appeared in another holographic projection. The young man stared blankly at the holographic projection in front of him. Hello, I am Lu Yongchang. Lu Yongchang was the first to speak. Proxima B. Looking at the scene in the holographic projection in front of him, Renfeng's mind went blank. This is the Earth Command Center. Hello, I'm Lu Yongchang. Directly in front, a young man said in a gentle tone, I would like to ask, what happened in city number 4 these days? Ren Feng. Hearing his name, Ren Feng suddenly came back to his senses. A trace of excitement flashed across his face. Lu, Professor Lu, you are finally here to save us. They, perhaps. Because he was too excited, he stood in front of the camera, stammering and gesticulating, unable to say a complete sentence. After communicating for a long time, Lu Yongchang finally understood the whole incident from Renfeng's fragmentary explanation, and Renfeng also understood the reason why the human fleet had not responded. When he learned that there were only 2.131 million people left in the entire human civilization of Proxima Centauri, Renfeng's expression suddenly changed. You did a good job. Lu Yongchang took a deep breath and said in a deep voice, now, have a good rest. Leave the aftermath to us. 0. We'll take care of everything, Professor Lu. A strange voice came from beside Renfeng. I have a request. As the words fell, a strange young man appeared in front of the camera. Introduce yourself. Zengking, male, 87 years old, lives at home all year round. He once invaded the city's central control system. Lu Yongchang raised his eyebrows and interrupted the young man's words. What do you want? Zengking was slightly startled, but quickly adjusted himself. He stared at Lu Yongchang in front of him and said seriously, Professor Lu, I hope you can open the permission for one, and we need a complete technological system. P.S. Today's update, please take some time off. Chapter 341, 1420 MHZ signal reappears. Lu Yongchang raised his eyebrows, but did not speak for the first time. Masaki Aoshi, Ren Feng's voice was full of anxiety. How could you? This is for all of us. Zengking interrupted Ren Feng's words directly. What if this happens again next time? Are we still the same as now, staying where we are and resigning ourselves to fate? Ren Feng was speechless for a moment. He hesitated for a while. Yes, but this is not the reason why we want these things. Don't forget, when we chose to stay at Proxima Centauri, each of us signed an agreement. Zenking's expression froze. He remembered. It seems there is indeed such an agreement. Thinking of the name he signed casually at that time, Zenking's face suddenly became embarrassed. But Lu Yongchang chuckled, nodded and said, I promise you, Zheng King raised his head in surprise and looked at the holographic projection in front of him. Point in the projection. Lu Yongchang was still looking at him with a gentle smile as at the beginning. What? Zheng King opened his mouth and asked in a dry voice. I said, I agree to your request. Lu Yongchang repeated with a smile. Point before Zheng King could be happy, he changed the subject. However, I also have a condition. Zheng King composed himself without any hesitation, nodded directly and said, you say it. Next, I will hand over all licensing rights. Lu Yongchang said calmly, you have absolute autonomy, and I will transfer the complete technology system to you. But, accordingly, you will no longer receive help from Zero, and you will need to rely on your own efforts for everything. Can you accept this condition? Zheng King's eyes showed some confusion. But soon, his eyes became firm. He nodded vigorously and said in a deep voice, it's acceptable. I believe this is a good thing for us too. Lu Yongchang laughed dumbly, nodded and said, come on, try to live. Communication ends. Lu Yongchang raised his hand with a normal expression and was operating something on the holographic projection in front of him. Yongchang, aren't you angry? Fang Zhu's slightly playful voice came from the side. Angry? Why are you angry? Lu Yongchang raised the corners of his mouth slightly and asked in a calm tone. Fang Zhu was slightly startled. Obviously, he did not expect Lu Yongchang to react like this. Don't you think Zheng King's request is excessive? Fang Zhu's face was full of tangles. After thinking for a long time, he said again, when they chose to stay, they didn't want these technologies. Is it too much? Lu Yongchang shrugged, checked the last part, and pressed the send button. They are human beings and they want to survive. This is normal. What's more, opening up the licensing rights and giving them the necessary technological system, in my opinion, this is not a bad thing. A trace of doubt flashed in Fang Zhu's eyes. The humans who originally stayed on Proxima B are more like moths. Lu Yongchang sighed softly. Even though we have left, they are still consuming zero computing power. In peacetime, it probably wouldn't matter. But now, you know what's going on. Giving them the necessary technology and letting them make their own decisions is undoubtedly a better choice and a more efficient approach. On the other hand, it can be regarded as our compensation for this matter. After all, these electromagnetic gun projectiles were sent out by us. Lu Yongchang pondered for a moment and then spoke again. There are currently only more than 2 million humans left in the entire Proxima B. The remaining resources in the Proxima galaxy are quite abundant for more than 2 million people. But do you think a mere 2 million people can support a second level civilization? No matter what we do, human civilization on Proxima Centauri has embarked on the path of slow death. It's just a matter of time. Fang Zhu looked at Lu Yongchang beside him with a complicated expression and nodded silently. 2 years later, us two huge cities stand on the vast land. Lu Yongchang sat in his office in Central City and slowly closed his eyes. His consciousness came to the system space again. After 2 years of hard work by all scientific researchers, the originally skinny technology tree has gradually become fuller against the bright green background. Bright white branches protrude from the trunk and extend unbridled around. The fog at the top of the technology tree gradually becomes thinner as the technology branches become fuller. Lu Yongchang's eyes widened and he turned his attention to the top of the technology tree. The vision gradually became clearer. The cursor was very blurry, but he could still make out the words in the dim cursor. Magnetic field control, primary shield technology. It dawned on him. It turns out that the threshold for level 3 civilization is to master shield technology. The prefix of the cursor gave him countless inspirations. Magnetic field mastery. Perhaps we can learn from the principles of plasma weapons. Bip, blop, blop. Before he had time to think about it, a rapid siren sounded from the outside world. Without any hesitation, Lu Yongchang quickly regained his consciousness and opened his eyes, looking at the bloody holographic projection in front of him. Lu Yongchang's face changed slightly. Zero, Professor, a signal came from OS 154 again. Signal frequency 1420 MHz. After signal comparison, it can be basically determined to be a message sent by painting Hearing this, LV Yongchang's expression suddenly became serious. 0. Gather all scientific researchers immediately. Central City Ground Command Center. The layout is very similar to the command center on Earth. The only difference is that the ground command center occupies a larger area, nearly twice the size. This is also normal. After all, Earth is the flagship of mankind, and every inch of land is worth a lot of money. When designing, those designers wanted to break 1 square meter into 8 petals for use, and in front of this spacious ground command center, a huge holographic projection appeared. In front of the holographic projection, there are rows of neat seats at this time. The seats are full. All members of the Academy of Sciences gathered here. Every researcher had the same expression. Frowning, doubt, shock, surprise. The reason was simple. In the huge holographic projection in front of everyone, there was a message from Ross 154. The message was very simple, with only 15 characters including punctuation. But the amount of information contained in it was incomparably huge. Little guys, I may not be able to wait for SQ. Chapter 340 to the moment of death. What does this mean? Fang Zhu's eyes were filled with doubt. Could it be that the so-called sweeper discovered his existence? LV Yongchang looked gloomy and slowly shook his head and said, it shouldn't be. If there is really a powerful enemy, the other party should not have the leisure to send us information. Maybe. His eyes moved slightly, and an incredible thought suddenly arose in his mind. Have you thought of the reason? Fang Zhu noticed LV Yongchang's strange expression at the first time. No, I'm not sure yet. Hearing Fang Zhu's question, LV Yongchang pondered for a moment and slowly said, I suspect that the other party is on his deathbed. Don't forget, he once revealed his injuries during the previous exchanges. While speaking, LV Yongchang quickly edited a message. Dear Hua, what happened? Unlike the last time, this time the information was transmitted to a communication satellite orbiting Ross 154 through a long-distance communication device. 2 years ago, the Academy of Sciences specially built this single-function communication satellite and launched it into the orbit of Ross 154. The satellite's function is very simple. Send, receive and convert signals. It can convert the signals from the human fleet's long-distance communication into electromagnetic wave signals, and then send them to Ross 154 in front of it. And vice versa. Although the function is simple, the technological content it contains is extremely high. Ross 154 is a young star with a very high burst frequency and a huge X-ray source. Therefore, sending and receiving radio signals has become an extremely difficult task. In order to ensure the successful sending and receiving of signals, this communication satellite was developed by Ko Liang himself. As for why so much effort was spent on making this satellite, the communication delay is too high. Although there are only 5.8 million kilometers between Ross 154 and Ross 2. For electromagnetic wave communication, it takes 38.6 seconds to go back and forth. Such a huge communication delay is obviously unacceptable. Painting found this communication satellite located nearby the next second. His response was sent directly to the small satellite. The 4-dimensional weapons of the sweeper division have caused great damage to my core. For hundreds of years, I have been trying to repair the core, but to no avail. LV Yongchang's breathing suddenly became rapid. Not only him, but Zhao Ziji on the Earth also breathed rapidly. Not fear, but greed. A dying level 7 2-dimensional creature. The temptation is extremely huge. If we can get a part of his body, perhaps human civilization can use this to peek into the mystery of the dimension. LV Yongchang took a deep breath, suppressed the distracting thoughts in his heart, and carefully edited a line of information. Excuse me, what can we do for you? Although it is a bit humble, there is nothing we can do about it. After all, the other party is not dead yet. He doesn't want to touch the bad luck of a dying person. The response of Hua soon appeared in front of everyone. Little guys, can you help me pass a message to the pastoral sect? As a reward, I can tell you how to enter the 3rd level civilization. LV Yongchang's expression suddenly became strange. There is a trick. This was the first thought that flashed through his mind. Isn't it wrong Fang Zhu frowned and murmured in a low voice, a 7th level civilization needs us to pass on information. This doesn't make sense, right? Perhaps. Sensing the hesitation of human civilization, Hua sent a few more messages. Perhaps you are doubting my motives, but please believe me, I have no ill intentions. Currently, the Galaxy Sweeper Division is searching for my traces with all its strength. Once I have any movement, it will lead to disaster. LV Yongchang frowned even more deeply. It's inconsistent. He stood up from the chair, pacing back and forth with his hands behind his back. Since he is already on his deathbed, why is he still afraid of this so-called sweeper civilization? Fang Zhu didn't speak, just stared at the holographic projection in front of him. Another new line of text appeared in front of everyone. My death is a small matter, but the failure of information transmission is a big matter. So, I ask you to do me a small favor. Seeing this, LV Yongchang raised his eyebrows. Interesting, this reason is quite reasonable, but LV Yongchang smiled and shook his head. Did he overestimate our ability? As he said that, he swiped his fingers and edited a message. Dear painting, we are just a small 2nd level civilization and may not have enough ability to help you. Inside Ross 154. The grey drawing paper with no thickness trembled violently. It seemed that it was somewhat dissatisfied with the response of human civilization. But soon, the drawing paper returned to calm and sent another message to the satellite around it. You don't need to have much ability. When I die, I will seal part of the core material. The sweepers cannot detect its existence, but for the dimensional life of the pastoral school, this is an extremely conspicuous signal beacon. You don't need to look for them. If they reach the Milky Way, they will find you. To show my sincerity, I can tell you first how to advance to the 3rd level civilization. Shield technology is the symbolic technology of the 3rd level civilization. As for how to break through this technology, I will tell you naturally after you agree. Make a decision quickly, I don't have much time. Looking at the text that keeps appearing in front of him, Lu Yangchang's breath suddenly choked. According to the cursor of the technology tree system, the other party did tell the truth. The key technology to break through the 3rd level civilization is indeed the shield technology point. But he doesn't think that the technology tree system can't help him solve this problem. Perhaps because human civilization has not responded. For a long time, the frequency of Hua sending messages is getting higher and higher. Human civilization, what are you worried about? Believe me, I have no malice. Grand unified theory, antimatter technology, whatever you want, pastoralism can satisfy you. I can't hold on any longer. Please respond immediately. Professor, something unusual has happened on the surface of Ross 154. As Zero's voice sounded, a holographic image unfolded in front of everyone. On the dark red surface of Ross 154, a grey painting appeared again. Unlike the last time, this time, the surface of the scroll was no longer flat, and a wrinkled substance appeared on its edge. It was like a flat scroll was crumpled by someone. Chapter 343 Two-dimensional detector. The vision on Ross 154 left everyone stunned. What's going on? Fang Zhu murmured to himself. Is this the death process of two-dimensional creatures? Incomprehensible. Lu Yongchang frowned, stretched out his hand, and moved it twice in the air. The holographic projection screen instantly enlarges. The lens focuses on the edge of the grey scroll. The fine and dense folds keep increasing. It looks like a flat picture scroll that is constantly being squeezed by the outside world. Zero, call up the real-time detection data of the detector. Lu Yongchang seemed to have thought of something and suddenly said, can you detect the thickness data? Anomaly, zeros. Response made Lu Yongchang frown even deeper. Human civilization, have you thought it through? Exclamation mark. I don't have much time. Exclamation mark. The information of painting appeared in front of everyone again. You can clearly feel the other party's anxiety and uneasiness from between the lines. But still couldn't believe the other person. Yongchang, hearing Fang Zhu's confused call, he slowly shook his head. No hurry, just wait. As soon as he finished speaking, a piercing alarm sounded in the quiet command center. Warning. Warning. The Signal of detector number 1 disappeared. The red warning light kept flashing, stimulating the fragile nerves of all scientific researchers for a time. The atmosphere in the ground command center became increasingly tense. Far away in the Earth in synchronous orbit, Zhao was also staring at the several holographic projections in front of him with a pale expression. "Professor, do you need to issue an evacuation order?" Zhao Ziji's voice also sounded in the communication channel of the ground command center. "Wait a minute." Lu Yongchang's expression changed slightly, and he stopped Zhao Ziji's move. "Don't act rashly. If the other party regards it as provocation or resistance, we will only be greeted by death." As he spoke, his brain was working rapidly. "0. Call up the records of the other 2 detectors and see if anything was captured. There are also optical telescopes equipped by the fleet to screen all records. I want to know what happened just now." The moment the words fell, point the huge holographic image directly in front of the ground command center suddenly split into countless tiny interfaces. Looking closely, every detailed interface is a separate holographic picture point. These images come from independent optical telescopes orbiting Ross 154. These finely divided interfaces are rapidly reduced at a speed visible to the naked eye. Soon only 4 holographic images were left in front of every one. The 4 pictures quickly enlarged and occupied the entire space. Lu Yongchang glanced at it and frowned immediately. "Is this the only picture, Professor?" At that time the trajectory of detector number 1 happened to be staggered with that of the other 2 detectors. Zero explained. "These few images were found from the observation records of the optical telescope." Lu Yongchang raised his eyebrows. "Just right. Coincide. I'm afraid there won't be so many coincidences." "Right," he said non-committally. "Play the recorded footage first." 4 holographic images were played simultaneously. The holographic video is very short, only about 30 seconds, but these 30 seconds brought unparalleled shock and panic to Lu Yongchang, the Academy of Sciences, and mankind. The horror events experienced by probe number 1 are clearly reproduced in the holographic images from 4 different angles. At the beginning, a small fragment quietly appeared on the edge of the thicknessless gray picture on the surface of Ross 154. Like the main body of the painting, this fragment is entirely gray. The only difference is that the surface of this fragment that fell off from the painting is more densely wrinkled. For example, if the wrinkle density on the main body of the painting is 1, then the wrinkle density on this fragment reaches 10. After the fragments separated from the main body, they flew directly towards the number 1 detector on the side. More than 10 seconds later this gray fragment hit the No. 1 detector hard. A moment. There have been unspeakable changes in detector number 1. Its surface emits a dazzling light. The moment the debris collided with it, its height seemed to be erased out of thin air. Under the gaze of everyone, the 3-dimensional detector quickly turned into a piece of paper. It successfully transformed into 2-dimensional matter. The 2-dimensional detector surface is extremely smooth and flat. Just like the essence of painting. Through a high-precision optical telescope, Lu Yongchang can even directly see the structure inside the detector. 0. Do you have any detection data? Lu Yongchang suddenly asked. 0 said nothing, and silently launched a new holographic projection beside him. In the projection, some basic detection data is beating point. When he saw the instantaneous temperature data on the surface of the detector, Lu Yongchang took a sharp breath. 1 billion degrees Celsius. What is this concept? The core temperature of the sun is only 15 million degrees Celsius. The temperature that triggers nuclear fusion is only a few 100 million degrees Celsius. It is unimaginable that in that short moment, such extreme high temperatures occurred near the detector. But the changes are not over yet. About 0.5 seconds later, endless wrinkles appeared on the flat 2-dimensional detector surface. These wrinkles are exactly the same as the wrinkles on painting. The 2-dimensional detector existed for less than a second before it disappeared silently in the endless universe. Through slow motion, it can be clearly seen that before disappearing, the detector seemed to have the attribute of height again. LV Yongchang glanced at the temperature data on the side. 269.3 degrees Celsius, close to absolute 0. It is only 0.85 degrees Celsius away from the minus 270.15 degrees Celsius of the cosmic microwave background radiation. In just a few seconds. The temperature near the number 1 detector was like a roller coaster. A flash of enlightenment flashed through LV Yongchang's mind. The wrinkles on painting S body may be a sign that it is about to become 3-dimensional. As for why the death of a 2-dimensional creature will become 3-dimensional, LV Yongchang has no clue in his mind. The only thing that can be determined is when 3-dimensional matter is reduced to 2-dimensional, it will release a lot of energy. And when it is upgraded, it will absorb a lot of energy. In the ground command center, there was a dead silence. The scene in front of me was too shocking for the current human civilization. Sorry little guys, I seem to have accidentally broken one of your detectors. I'm sorry, but I can't control my body anymore. Please give me a reply as soon as possible. In the holographic projection on the side, a line of information from painting flashed. This is a threat. In the communication channel of the command center, Zhao slammed the table. TND. Chapter 344 2-dimensional attack. LV Yongchang silently looked at the line of text in the holographic projection. For a long time. He exhaled a long breath of turbid air and said in a dry voice, yes, this is a threat, but do you have any way this time it can accidentally touch the number 1 detector? Next time it can accidentally touch our flagship. We have no defense against this kind of attack method. In the communication channel, Zhao's heavy breathing suddenly paused. After a long time, Zhao sighed hard. Click. The sound of the electromagnetic absorption device came from the communication channel. Then, Professor, do you have any way? Zhao's voice was filled with a strong sense of powerlessness. Facing Zhao's inquiry, Lu Yongchang slowly stood up from his seat. There is no way. You can only agree to the other party's request. The moment he heard this, Zhao clenched his fist. But soon, he dropped his arm weakly and let go of his clenched fist. Dear Hua, after a referendum, we are willing to help you pass on the message. A message was sent from Ross 2 and instantly arrived near Ross 154 through long distance communication. Soon, Hua's response appeared in front of everyone. Very good human civilization, your courage deserves my respect. LV Yongchang smiled bitterly. Is this a question of courage? You have put a knife on our necks, but you can't say that. After a moment of silence, LV Yongchang edited a new message. What do you need us to do? This time, Hua did not respond to the human message immediately. 10 full minutes, no response. For every scientific researcher, in such a tense and high pressure environment, every minute and every second is torture. Yongchang, Fang Zhu's voice came from the side. LV Yongchang reached out to wipe the cold sweat on his forehead, pursed his lips hard, and squeezed out a word from his teeth. Wait. Although he was also tormented in his heart. But being in a weak position, humans have no choice but to wait for the other side's response. Suddenly, his eyes moved slightly, and his attention was focused on the holographic projection in front of him on the left. In this holographic projection, a panoramic view of Ross 154 was presented. On the dark red surface of Ross 154, a hole suddenly appeared in the center of the gray scroll. A gray fragment appeared from the hole and flew straight towards Ross 2. In just a moment, its speed reached 20% of the speed of light. In the holographic projection, the speed of the gray fragment is getting higher and higher! 30% of the speed of light! 50% of the speed of light! 70% of the speed of light. LV Yongchang looked at the holographic image in front of him with bloodshot eyes. Retreat. Start the retreat plan immediately. He grabbed the microphone beside him and roared loudly. Zhao, who was on the Earth, was already lying in the deep sea cabin at this time. Earth received. Human fleet, forward 4. Direction of travel, random. More than 3,000 bright spots suddenly appeared in the cold and dark universe. The human fleet scattered in the Ross 154 star system, at this moment, fled in all directions with the maximum travel power. Seeing that more than 3,000 starships were all successfully launched, LV Yongchang subconsciously breathed a sigh of relief. Don't worry, I have no ill intentions. In the holographic projection, a line of information from painting suddenly appeared. A trace of anger flashed in LV Yongchang's eyes, and he quickly dragged over a holographic projection and edited a line of text. We have agreed to your request. Why go back on your word? Click to send. In just a few seconds, LV Yongchang completed all the above actions at the moment of sending the message. His hands were even shaking slightly. This time, painting's response came very quickly. This is part of the core. Believe me, unlike the two-dimensional fragments, it will not cause any harm to you. LV Yongchang was stunned. Part of the core, although Hua said so, he still did not relax his vigilance and issued an order in the communication channel again. Zhao, Ziji, continue to implement the evacuation plan. Don't look back unless you are sure it is safe. Received. Zhao Ziji responded silently. Ah, you little guys are too suspicious. Perhaps he noticed the movements of the surrounding fleet, and Hua sent another message. At the same time, under the tracking of countless optical telescopes, the gray fragment has crossed 5.8 million kilometers and arrived near us. Under the gaze of everyone, it stopped abruptly. From 70% of the speed of light to stillness. This fragment only took a few seconds. This powerful maneuverability made Lu Yongchang's eyes rise with a trace of despair, looking at the grey fragment staying on the synchronous orbit of Ross-2. Lu Yongchang's face turned pale, and he swallowed hard. Next, you take it, and stay as far away from this star system as possible. I can provide you with several options. Painting information continuously appears in the holographic projection. It took a long time for Lu Yongchang to come back to his senses. He typed out a few Chinese characters with shaking hands. I need a way to control it. We have seen the fate of the number 1 detector. It is too risky. A few seconds later, the response of painting appeared again in the holographic projection. The request is reasonable. Next, I will transmit a little information and materials to you. They can help you make a machine for stable two-dimensional fragments. As soon as the voice fell, several gray fragments appeared again in the gray scroll on the surface of Ross 154. Just like before, these fragments flew straight towards Ross 2 at 70% of the speed of light. At the same time, Zero's voice sounded in the command center. Professor, the other party sent a piece of information. Do you want to receive it? LV Yongchang hesitated for a moment, then nodded resolutely. Receive it. How big is the data? It is equivalent to 1/10 of the database size. Zero responded quickly. The data content is huge, and it takes a certain amount of time to receive it completely. Hiss. LV Yongchang took a breath again. 1/10 of the database. Is this the small information in the mouth of advanced civilization? Now, can you rest assured? If there is nothing else, leave as soon as possible. My death will completely destroy this star. LV Yongchang looked at the grey scroll in the holographic projection, and then looked at the grey fragments above Ross 2 and the progress bar of the data transmission. A gleam of light flashed in his eyes, and he licked his lips subconsciously. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 345, Two-Dimensional Fragment Stabilization Device. Dear Hua, I hope you can provide us with some fragments of your body. We are just a weak second-level civilization, and it is difficult to protect ourselves in today's galaxy. Before encountering pastoral civilization, these two-dimensional fragments can ensure the safety of our civilization. After editing this string of information, Lu Yongchang checked it again. There was a hint of excitement and greed in his eyes. Yongchang, this shocking operation completely fell into Fang Zhu's eyes. He swallowed softly and subconsciously lowered his voice and said, "Are you crazy, Lu?" Yongchang suddenly raised his head, with an inexplicable smile on his face. Do you think I'm crazy? Then why do you think the other party wants us to pass on the information? We were even given so many benefits for it. Fang Zhu hesitated for a while, and said in a lower voice, do you also think that the other party has bad intentions? Of course. Lu Yongchang shrugged. Perhaps the other party wants us to attract the attention of the sweepers and escape, or maybe the other party wants to use us as bait. to lure the sweepers into taking the bait. Having said this, he chuckled. Of course, we cannot rule out the possibility that the higher civilizations in the pastoral school are idealistic. No matter what the other party's intentions are, one thing is for sure. A trace of bitterness flashed in Yongchang's eyes. In front of this two-dimensional creature, we are just pawns. But the chess pieces must also have their value. Our current strength is not even worthy of being a chess piece. So as he spoke, Yongchang glanced at the holographic projection in front of him. His cheek muscles tightened, and he resolutely pressed the send button. Since I can't resist, then why not take this opportunity to improve the strength of human civilization as much as possible, even if this fire may burn human civilization to ashes. Even though human civilization may be dragged into the abyss by this decision, I still choose to dance with it. Only in this way can human civilization find a way to survive. This time, painting did not immediately respond to the human message. Yongchang sat on the chair and silently looked at the holographic projection in front of him. In the projection, the wrinkles on the gray scroll on the surface of the dark red star become increasingly dense. Human civilization, do you know what you are doing? Suddenly, a message appeared in the huge holographic projection directly in front. Compared with the previous messages, the message sent this time had a hint of anger between the lines. Even the title was changed from the little guy to human civilization. This is also normal. Yongchang can also understand the reason for the other party's anger. After all, in painting's view, human civilization is no different than an ant. But this ant is asking for a part of his body. Yongchang pondered for a moment and edited a message again. Dear painting, please forgive our unreasonable request. However, you don't want key information to be unable to be transmitted smoothly due to the interference of some low-level civilizations, right? Click send. Violent fluctuations appeared on the gray picture on the surface of ROS 154. Even the brightness of ROS 154 showed some abnormal fluctuations. Human civilization, I agree to your request. However, I'm very disappointed in you. You have lost the opportunity to join the pastoral faction because of this. Looking at the information in the holographic projection, Yongchang breathed out a soft breath. His stiff body relaxed a little. The bet was 1 point. Human civilization will have a big killer weapon. As for the opportunity the other party mentioned to join the pastoral faction, stop being ridiculous. Who cares about that stuff? With the current human civilization, if you join such an organization established by a higher civilization, you may be eaten without even half of your bones. The technological level of the second level civilization should be enough to create a simplified version of a two-dimensional debris stabilization device. Make it as soon as possible. I don't have much time left. New information flashes in the holographic projection. In the distance, the gray picture scroll sank into the dark red stars again. Professor, the data transfer has been completed. Zeros voice sounded in the command center. Do you want to open the file? Looking at the 100% progress bar in front of him, Yongchang nodded without any hesitation and said, open. After a short wait, a huge model appeared in front of everyone. Next to the model, detailed data of each component is marked. The overall shape of the device is a hollow sphere with a diameter of 100 meters. On the periphery of the hollow sphere are 3 concentric rings with different diameters. 3 concentric rings slowly rotate around the center of the ball. At the center of the ball is a gray two-dimensional fragment. Yongchang stretched out his hand and moved it in the air a few times. The two-dimensional debris stabilizer model directly ahead disintegrated rapidly. The internal structure of 3 concentric rings is presented to everyone. Densely packed coils. Yongchang raised his eyebrows. Magnetic field restraint device. But the next moment, he noticed a problem. He shook his head and said to himself, no, that's not right. The coils are arranged differently in each concentric ring. 0. Exclude the rest of the components and model the coils in the concentric rings separately. Simulate and calculate the magnetic field shape formed by the arrangement of the coils in these 3 concentric rings. The arrangement of the coils in the 3 concentric rings is extremely complex, and coupled with the magnetic field changes of the 3 concentric rings combined, even 0 took several minutes. To calculate point in the holographic projection, virtual magnetic flux lines gradually appeared point as the magnetic flux lines became denser. Yongchang gradually discovered the secret point. The outermost concentric rings formed a huge closed magnetic field and wrapped the entire device in it. Magnetic field shield. Yongchang's eyes lit up, and he muttered to himself. Point unexpectedly, the technology of entering the third level civilization was presented to him like this, but obviously, the real magnetic field shield technology is not that simple. Point humans can't put a few huge concentric rings on the outside of a starship, right? But the two-dimensional fragment stabilization device drawings in front of him pointed out the direction for human civilization to move forward. Yongchang believed that as long as there was enough time, he would be able to lead the team to break through the so-called technological shackles. He suppressed his excitement and cast his eyes on the core of the hollow ball. Point the two smaller concentric rings in the inner circle formed a complex magnetic confinement device. A flash of enlightenment flashed through Yongchang's mind. Putting aside the other components, the function of these coils is still very simple to understand. Build a magnetic confinement device that is strong enough to bind the two-dimensional fragments tightly and ensure that it will not be disturbed by external charged particles. Chapter 346. As the entire device design was disassembled, Yongchang gradually understood the basic principle of this device. First, use a strong magnetic field to constrain the two-dimensional fragments to ensure that they will not touch some impurities. In connection with the situation encountered by the number 1 detector, it is easy to understand its purpose. The two-dimensional fragments separated from the painting are extremely unstable. Secondly, it is the energy input system. According to the nodes in the design, a two-dimensional fragment stabilization device with a diameter of 100 meters can only constrain a two-dimensional fragment with an area of 5 square meters, and the energy consumed in the entire constraint stabilization process is unimaginable. As for how the two-dimensional fragments are stabilized after these energies are input, Yongchang does not know. All he knows is that this is effective with the gray fragments given by the painting. Each two-dimensional fragment stabilization device requires a gray fragment as the core component. In other words, according to the number of gray fragments given by the painting, humans can only have maximum of 50 two-dimensional fragment stabilization devices. However, considering the energy consumption of this device, 50 stabilization devices are also the limit that humans can bear according to Zero's preliminary calculations. A Comet class, Golden Crow, battleship should be able to just meet its energy consumption requirements under normal conditions. This is just the normal situation. Once an accident occurs, this device with a diameter of 100 meters will even consume all the energy of 2 Comet class, Golden Crow, battleships. When seeing this terrifying energy consumption data, Yongchang instantly realized it. No wonder this two-dimensional creature has to hide in the star. In this vast universe, only these stars can meet its needs. But two-dimensional creatures can cross the stars in their flesh, but humans can't. In order to achieve perfect control of two-dimensional fragments, it is not only necessary to manufacture a two-dimensional fragment stabilization device according to the drawings, but the transformation of new battleships is also imminent. These new starships do not need any extra functions. In addition to the fusion reactor, hull thruster and fuel depot that are several times that of ordinary starships, there will only be a two-dimensional fragment stabilization device installed inside. Yes, there is also a huge gun barrel that launches two-dimensional fragments. As for the name of the new starship, let's call it Dimensional Strike Ship. P.S. I really can't think of a good name. Yongchang retracted his scattered thoughts and turned his eyes back from the design drawings in the holographic projection. 0. Notifies Aozuji. Stop the evacuation plan. All starships will meet outside the Ross 154 star system. In addition, let him drive the Earth and bring back 50 Comet class, Golden Crow battleships. Considering that U's life is about to come to an end. LV Yongchang specifically ordered to stop all unnecessary calculations and engineering. All of Zero's computing resources were put on transforming starships and manufacturing two-dimensional fragment stabilization devices. Thanks to this, in just half a month, the human fleet completed all preparations. Dear Hua, we have completed all manufacturing work in the Earth Command Center. LV Yongchang pressed the send button with a solemn look. A few minutes later, a touch of gray appeared on the dark red ROS 154 surface again. Compared with the last time, the density of wrinkles on the surface of Painting's body has increased again. So fast? Painting's response was full of surprise and doubt. I originally thought that you would need at least 2 months to complete such a heavy construction work. Unbelievable. It seems that you have put a lot of effort in computer technology and weak artificial intelligence technology. LV Yongchang's eyes moved slightly. Weak artificial intelligence. Why do the other party think that humans have weak artificial intelligence, whether according to human standards or according to the standards of the technology tree system? Zero belongs to the standard strong artificial intelligence. In fact, if it were not for the limitations of the system, Zero could even be considered super artificial intelligence. Although he was full of doubts, he did not ask questions about this, but brought the topic back to the two-dimensional fragments. Since you have completed the preparations, I will fulfill my promise. The gray scroll on the surface of ROS 154 trembled violently and fell off 50 tiny fragments. Unlike the fragments that attacked the number 1 probe, the surface of these gray fragments is still smooth. That is to say, at present, they are still in a stable state. Use these two-dimensional fragments with caution. After leaving my body, these fragments will soon be assimilated by the three-dimensional universe. At that time, the damage caused is not something that you, a second-level civilization, can bear. Looking at the gray fragments flying towards ROS 154 at 70% of the speed of light, LV Yongchang hurriedly asked the question that had been lingering in his mind. How powerful are these two-dimensional fragments? At the same time, 50 Comet-class, dimensional strike ships, transformed from Golden Crow battleships, slowly opened their hatches, revealing the two-dimensional fragment stabilization devices inside, waiting for the arrival of the two-dimensional fragments. Power. The destructive power caused by two-dimensional fragments is not a simple addition. I can give you an analogy. One two-dimensional fragment can easily destroy your flagship. But more than 40 two-dimensional fragments can even destroy your planet. Looking at the words that appeared in front of him, Lu Yongchang's breathing suddenly became rapid, his eyes widened slightly, and there was a flush of excitement on the sides of his cheeks. Destroy planets. This kind of power. This can be called the trump card of human civilization. Leave quickly. I'm no longer able to resist the oppression of the three-dimensional universe on me. As a new piece of information appeared in front of everyone, the gray scroll on the surface of ROS 154 once again sank into the interior of the star ROS to star synchronous orbit. 50 gray fragments successfully arrived at their destination and were quietly suspended in space. It can be clearly found through the detector that there is still a strong magnetic field around these gray fragments, but this magnetic field is rapidly attenuating, and sporadic wrinkles are beginning to appear on the smooth two-dimensional debris surface. Don't think too much. This must be Painting's handiwork. Under Zero's control, 50 dimensional strike ships opened their belly hatches and slowly drove towards the two-dimensional fragments that were in a relatively stationary state toward ROS 2. The next moment, these two-dimensional fragments were eaten into the belly of the dimension strike ship and sent into the stabilizing device. Looking at the two-dimensional fragments with wrinkles gradually disappearing in the camera, Lu Yongchang let out a long sigh of relief. He untied the electromagnetic absorption device, stood up and said, "The human fleet is ready to go." In the holographic projection in front of him, a line of text appeared again. Human civilization, remember your promise. Chapter 347 Gliese 555. The line of text directly in front made the atmosphere inside Earth a little heavier again. Professor, this core, Fang Zhu's voice came from the side. Liu Yongchang also had a darker look on his face. He turned his head and looked at the side window. Outside the porthole, a starship with a length of just over 300 meters was parked quietly next to the Earth. Compared with the Earth and other Comet-class starships, this starship is extremely inconspicuous. The starship is not equipped with any weapons. Not even a cockpit. The entire ship is controlled by 0. It does not belong to any formation of the human fleet. Isolation ship. This is its own name. As the name suggests, its function is simple, isolating the two-dimensional core and the human fleet from each other. Inside, apart from the fuel depot, fusion reactor and hull thruster, there is only one huge machine installed. Two-dimensional debris stabilization device. But unlike the dimensional attack ship, this two-dimensional debris stabilizing device does not place ordinary two-dimensional debris, but it is part of the core of painting. Although according to Hua, the core will not die as quickly as ordinary two-dimensional fragments, Liu Yongchang still built a separate stabilizing device for it. Even for safety reasons, the two-dimensional core and stabilizing device are placed in a separate isolation room. The isolation chamber walls are made of high-strength transparent aluminum material. Inside the isolation room, there are no circuits or interfaces except for a constant light with its own small nuclear battery. From a physical sense, it excludes the possibility of invading computer systems through various lines or interfaces. Outside the isolation room is a larger and more empty cabin. Dozens of high-precision cameras are placed more than 10 meters away from the walls of the isolation room. These cameras surround the entire isolation chamber, ensuring that the 2D debris stabilization device and the 2D core in the isolation chamber can be observed in real time from all angles. In addition to these safeguards, Liu Yongchang even placed several plasma bombs in the isolation ship. An energy weapon that uses high temperature plasma to cause massive damage. Once an abnormality is detected, these plasma bombs installed near the fusion reactor will explode directly. The violent high temperature plasma flow will tear the entire quarantine ship apart in an instant. As for whether the two-dimensional core will be affected by this weak offensive, come to think of it, no. But this is already the greatest protective measure that human civilization can take. According to Paint, this core will become a beacon, guiding the pastoral civilization that comes to the galaxy. Liu Yongchang was non-committal about this statement. Who knows whether this core will ultimately attract pastoral civilization or sweeper civilization. However, there is only one thing that can be confirmed. No matter which civilization it attracts, it is like a time bomb for human civilization. Not just a ticking time bomb. Maybe even a monitor. He didn't believe that a dignified 7th level civilization could be so stupid and sweet. He would put all his hopes on the verbal promise of a 2nd level civilization. This is impossible both emotionally and rationally. But even if you know that there is a backhand of painting hidden in this so-called two-dimensional core. Liu Yongchang had nothing to do about it. He let out a long sigh. Leave this star system first, and we will discuss the issue of the two-dimensional core later. As he spoke, Liu Yongchang stretched his hand across the holographic projection in front of him. A brilliant star map appeared in front of him. Ross 154, top, and Gliese 555, bottom. As Liu Yongchang's fingers crossed, countless bright or dark star points flew across quickly. Finally, the crosshaws landed on a dim point of light. Gliese 555 distance. 17.49 light years. According to the information provided by Painting, there is a star system where human civilization can rest and live. Not as good as Earth, not as good as Proxima b, not even as good as Ross 154, but precisely because of this, very few civilizations have set foot nearby. Destination set successfully. As Liu Yongchang's finger gently clicked on the cursor, Zero's voice sounded in the command center. A bright white dotted line slowly extends from the center of the star chart to the location of the cursor. Target: Gliese 555. Distance: 17.49 light years. Estimated voyage time: 90 years. The starship is about to accelerate. Please enter the deep sea cabin immediately. Repeat, the starship is about to accelerate. Liu Yongchang turned to look at Zhao Ziji beside him, smiled bitterly and shook his head. It seems that we will see you again in 90 years, Zhao. Ziggy shrugged. I hope we don't wake up early, Lu. Yongchang's face froze, and he subconsciously turned his head and glanced at the isolation ship outside the port window of the Earth. I hope so, he murmured heartily. Then he stepped into the deep sea cabin. A few minutes later, the deep sea hatch was closed, and the light yellow deep sea liquid slowly rose from the soles of his feet and gradually submerged Lu Yongchang's head. A powerful recoil force hit him, pressing him firmly against the wall of the deep sea cabin. But because of the presence of deep sea liquid, Lu Yongchang didn't feel much strange. On the contrary, this familiar feeling even brought him an inexplicable sense of security. Since rebirth, every star system has contained a faint murderous intent. Perhaps only an endless journey can allow human civilization to enjoy a brief peace. LV Yongchang sighed silently in his heart, and with the help of the brainwave reading device, he adjusted the holographic image in front of him. The detector left on. Ross 2 slowly changed direction and cast a gaze towards Ross 154. He wanted to witness the death of a two-dimensional creature with his own eyes, no matter from which aspect. This extremely rare scene will become a valuable asset for human civilization. Ross 154. The gray scroll slowly emerged. The scroll quickly turned an angle and came to the direction facing the human fleet. Like LV Yongchang, Painting also wants to witness the departure of the human fleet with his own eyes, watching the fleet speed up and gradually move away from the Ross 154 star system. A slight ripple appeared on the surface of the scroll. A wave of obscure fluctuations came from it. Finally, gone. These little guys are really hard to fool, but although the process was a little difficult, the result is good after all. The gray scroll turned an angle again. This time, it was facing the center of the Milky Way. Sweeper, we'll see. The next moment, painting seemed to have discovered the probe left by human civilization on Ross 2. It chuckled. Little guy, you are so cautious. Since you want to see it so much, I'll show you one. Chapter 348 Death of. 1 month later inside the Earth. LV Yongchang, who was in the deep sea cabin, showed some doubts in his eyes in the holographic projection in front of him. The density of wrinkles on the gray scroll on the dark red star surface has reached the extreme. But this scene has not changed for 5 days. Could it be this so-called impending death is all a lie of the other party? When this thought came to his mind, LV Yongchang's heart couldn't help but skip a beat. If it is really a lie, then what is the other party's intention? Is human civilization really a bait to attract sweepers? He was confused, and complex thoughts rushed out from the bottom of his heart. The next moment, a sudden change occurred. At this moment, Proxima B. Renfeng stood in front of the Great Hall, with a bit of excitement in his eyes. On this day, he was successfully elected as the first chairman of the Proxima human civilization. Next to him stood Zhang Zhenking with a calm face. Just like him. After going through the test of the crisis not long ago, Zhang Zhenking stood out from the crowd and was successfully elected as the first chief scientist of human civilization on Proxima Centauri. Renfeng coughed lightly and said to the microphone in front of him, "Dear compatriots, thank you for your trust in me. I hope that in the days to come." Listening to Renfeng's speech, Zhang Zhenking's eyes showed a bit of helplessness. He was still thinking about the materials he had not finished reading. Ross 154. On the surface of the gray scroll, the wrinkles fluctuated more and more violently. In the detector located on Ross 2, the temperature near the gray scroll suddenly dropped. Even on the surface of the star, the temperature of painting quickly dropped to about 173 degrees Celsius. Compared with other parts of Ross 154, the area where painting is located is already an extremely cold zone. Looking at the temperature curve in the holographic projection, LV Yongchang's eyes were shaken, and he swallowed hard. Unbelievable. The temperature curve gradually stabilized and remained at around 167 to 180 degrees Celsius. In this way, more than 10 minutes passed in a flash. Just when LV Yongchang was about to breathe a sigh of relief, the change happened again. The detector sounded the alarm again. Just now, at that moment, a third dimension appeared on Hua's body. Although it recovered quickly, the detector still recorded the data of that moment. 1 meter compared with Hua's huge body. 1 meter seems to be nothing. But it is this 1 meter that means Hua, has escaped the category of two-dimensional creatures. At this time, Hua has returned to normal, and it seems that everything that happened just now is like an illusion point, but data will not lie point. In addition to the thickness data that appeared for a moment, there is another key data point: temperature. At this time, Hua, and even the temperature around Hua, has dropped to -191 degrees Celsius. A huge black spot even appeared on the surface of the red dwarf. God knows how much energy painting extracted from Ross 154 in that short moment. After the explosion just now, the brightness of Ross 154 seemed to be much dimmer at this moment. Yongchang suddenly understood what painting meant. No wonder it claimed that its death could destroy a star. Looking at the error words displayed again in the detector, Yongchang took a deep breath of deep sea liquid. The oxygen contained in the deep sea liquid refreshed his mind. An idea gradually emerged in his mind. Dying struggle. Yes, the scene just now was like painting struggling to death. Had tried its best to resist the assimilation effect of the three-dimensional universe. Yongchang believed that if painting was in a normal state, it would be effortless to do this. It was nothing more than consuming some energy. But now, with the core severely damaged, everything painting did was destined to be a futile struggle. Yongchang's eyes were full of excitement. He widened his eyes, trying to deeply engrave the picture in front of him into his brain. Although he could not understand the mystery between dimensions now, he believed that these precious pictures would become the cornerstone of human civilization's mastery of dimensional technology. Time passed little by little. This time, the picture on Ross 154 was stagnant for 2 days. During these 2 days, the painting was like a rag covering Ross 154. Motionless, Yongchang stared at the holographic projection in front of him with a pair of heavy dark circles. These 2 days, he didn't even sleep, just to witness the complete death scene. Professor, I can remind you when the abnormal movement occurs. Zero's voice sounded in the deep sea cabin. No need. Yongchang ordered with brain waves. I must witness the whole scene with my own eyes. As soon as the voice fell, there was a slight abnormal movement in the holographic projection. The surface of the painting, which was originally like a rag, fluctuated again. It was a familiar scene again. The detector sent the thickness data again. Unlike the last time, this time, Hua no longer had the energy to fight against the assimilation of the three-dimensional universe. The light of the red dwarf star quickly dimmed. And the temperature of Hua's body began to drop sharply. -250 degrees Celsius, -265 degrees Celsius, -270 degrees Celsius, -273 degrees Celsius. The temperature curve flattened and stopped falling. It was only 0.15 degrees Celsius away from absolute zero. The gray scroll had disappeared from the camera without anyone noticing. It must have turned into some elementary particles and completely mixed into the particle soup of the universe. And Ross 154 was completely extinguished. What appeared in front of Yongchang was a black dwarf that existed only in theory. It no longer emitted any light, and even the radiation completely disappeared. Yongchang subconsciously opened his mouth, and a mouthful of bitter deep sea liquid poured into his mouth, refreshing his chaotic brain. The end is over? Yes, Professor. Zero's voice sounded again. Because Ross 154 has lost a lot of mass, it is currently unable to maintain the existence of this star system. As Zero's voice fell, the gas giant planet closest to Ross 154 broke away from its original orbit, drew a beautiful curve, and flew towards the endless deep space. A few seconds later, the orbit of Ross 2 also changed. Zero. Let the probe go to Ross 154. Black dwarfs are celestial bodies in theory, and they can fill a lot of content in our theoretical system. Looking at Ross 2, which was gradually going away, Yongchang suddenly came back to his senses and excitedly gave orders with brain waves. Got it, Professor. In the holographic projection, probes with different functions and shapes dragged blue flames at their tails, and flew towards Ross 154. Chapter 349 Type I Emergency Plan. As the probe arrived near OS 154, the huge amount of detection data began to be transmitted to the optical quantum supercomputing center of Earth. After zero processing, most of the useless information was eliminated, while some useful or uncertain information was retained. Finally, these data were presented to LV Yongchang one by one. In the deep sea cabin, LV Yongchang's eyes, full of dark circles, widened a little, and he carefully observed the data in front of him. Carbon and a small amount of interstellar dust. This is the composition of black dwarf snow light. No radiation. It looks like a huge solid planet. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, LV Yongchang would never believe that not long ago, this was a star emitting endless heat. With a serious look, he sorted out the data in front of him in categories and classified them into the astronomical system mastered by humans, the central area of the Milky Way. The Milky Way branch of the Sweeper civilization. Sweeper 9527, as usual, was bored and flipping through the data sent back by the probe. Sir, 3 more suspected stars have been found. The voice of the subordinate came from the side. 9527 responded softly, dragged the light curtain beside him with his tentacles, and checked it casually. The next moment, he casually pressed the button on the light curtain beside him. The button has only one function. Launch the star-eating device. As the Sweeper 9527 moved, a strange ripple appeared beside the absolutely still artificial planet. It was like a stone was thrown into the lake. The ripples slowly spread. 3 star-eating devices with black light slowly emerged from the center of the ripples. When the 3 star-eating devices were completely presented in the universe, the ripples gradually disappeared, and the universe returned to its original appearance. And these 3 star-eating devices, after pausing for a moment, entered the curvature state and disappeared from sight. Sir, there are not many star devourers in the microcosm. The subordinate's voice sounded again. Do we need to make another batch? 9527 frowned, and the tentacle swayed a few times casually, and the external memory storage device next to the brain flickered with light. No, need to waste resources. I remember that the first batch of star devourers launched has completed the mission. They should be back soon, right? The subordinate responded quickly. Yes, sir. At present, more than 20 star devourers are on their way back. 9527 nodded lightly. Remember to extract the energy from them. Don't look at the energy of a single star devourer, but when the number increases, the energy is still considerable. At least it can support us to fight a small-scale war. The subordinate quickly responded. It's just that, until now, we haven't found any trace of the painting. The subordinate hesitated for a while and said, could it be dead? After all, its core was directly hit by the 4-dimensional shock bomb, and the degree of damage must be high. Faced with the subordinate's question, Sweeper 9527's face froze slightly. But soon, it said in a low voice, even if it is dead, we have to find its death place. The mother civilization is making every effort to conquer the 2-dimensional technology. Whether it is dead or alive, it has an extraordinary effect on us. Sweeper 9527's eyes showed a bit of contemplation. His brain was running fast, thinking about the possibility of this happening. The core was destroyed by the 4-dimensional shock bomb. Maybe this 2-dimensional creature really died in a remote corner. Thinking of this, Sweeper 9527's eyes showed a bit of panic. This 2-dimensional creature is the focus of the mother civilization. If it goes wrong, the tentacles of Sweeper 9527 suddenly stopped. Release all the detectors. Carpet. Search the Orion arm. I don't believe we can't find this cunning 2-dimensional creature. 25 years later, Earth calendar year 2300. In the vast interstellar space. A fleet with traces of time on its surface is heading towards its destination at 25% of the speed of light. Inside the starship, a full 6 billion humans are in deep hibernation 1 AU away from Earth. A spherical detector with a diameter of about 1 meter flashes green indicator lights on its surface, patrolling and detecting according to the zero planned route point. Suddenly, the camera on the spherical detector stopped rotating. Point in the camera view of the spherical detector, a square detector with a tattered surface and even many exposed circuits slowly emerged from the deep space. Point inside the Earth optical quantum supercomputing center. The bright red warning lights kept flashing, and the piercing alarm bells screamed wildly. Zero's CPU usage instantly soared by 10 percentage points. At the same time, the emergency plan was activated. Point 1 AU outside. Point dozens of detectors came from all sides, surrounding the square detector that did not belong to humans. The red working indicator light on the surface of the square detector flickered slowly, as if it was full of confusion about the behavior of these spherical detectors around it. Point after the emergency plan was activated, a message that had been set long ago was sent to the square detector. The content of the message was very simple. Point it's just a series of prime numbers. If the other party is a civilization that can communicate, this series of prime numbers is enough to show the tendency of human beings inside Earth. The lights near the hibernation cabin lit up one by one. Unknown civilization creation detected. Type I. Emergency plan activated. Wake up. Mission in progress. As Zero's voice sounded, a small holographic image appeared above the selected hibernation cabin. Point a familiar feeling came from all directions of the body. Point LV Yongchang frowned subconsciously and opened his eyes with difficulty. Point the pupils illuminated by the strong light shrank rapidly. Point he subconsciously tilted his head and moved his sight away. Point seeing this, the robot next to him turned off the small flashlight. Pupil light reflex normal. A line of Chinese characters flashed quickly in the holographic image. Point the next moment, the robot raised 3 fingers, and Zero's voice came from the robot's body. Professor, please answer. What is this? Having just woken up from hibernation, LV Yongchang's vision was still a little blurry. Point after blinking hard, the scene in his eyes gradually became clear. 3. He answered in a hoarse voice. Point the robot quickly changed its gestures. 5. LV Yongchang pulled the corner of his mouth and said helplessly. Point although he was a little impatient with this process, it was for the health of the hibernator after all. Point therefore, he could only cooperate with the robot to answer a few preset questions. Awake, in good condition. In the holographic projection, a line of faint Chinese characters flashed again. Professor, welcome to Wake Up. We are in trouble. Chapter 350. A first level civilization creation. LV Yongchang stared at the robot in front of him. Point after a short reaction time, his face suddenly changed. His already pale face looked even uglier. His breathing became rapid. Is there something wrong with the two-dimensional core? This thought came to LV Yongchang's mind at the first moment. Point as he spoke, he struggled to stand up from the deep sea cabin. Point the robot in front of him shook his head anthropomorphically. It's not a two-dimensional core. It's an alien civilization. The Type I emergency plan has been activated. LV Yongchang couldn't help but stand there, muttering to himself. An alien civilization. A holographic projection quietly unfolded in front of him. Point in the center of the array of dozens of spherical detectors was a tattered ancient detector. Yes, it was an ancient detector. The arrangement of the exposed wires, the circuit board structure and various sensors in it reminded LV Yongchang of his time on Earth. Point I vaguely remember that hundreds of years ago, humans also relied on this old detector to explore the universe. Point a sigh flashed in his eyes, and his tense body relaxed a little. Point LV Yongchang forced himself to climb out of the deep sea cabin. Are the others awake? The awakening procedure is in progress. At present, the awakened personnel are looking at the long list in front of him. LV Yongchang nodded with satisfaction. Tell everyone to gather at the command center immediately after recovery. By the way, send a Zuan number 2 to conduct a close-range exploration of this detector. 0 did not hesitate at all. Received. At the same time, a thrilling scene was being staged in the universe outside 1AU. The unidentified square detector relies on the Hall thruster at the tail to move. Point, but the Hall thruster it is equipped with is obviously not comparable to the Hall thruster of humans compared with the spherical detector. The square detector has an extremely slow travel speed. Point, but even so, because the two are moving in opposite directions, The relative speed of the two sides still reaches an extremely high level point. This adds a lot of difficulties to the interception mission. The detector changed its course and flew to the side of the square detector, using its body to strike the Hall thruster at the tail of the square detector under Zero's precise control. A visual feast like an air scalpel slowly unfolded. The spherical detector kept touching the body of the square detector from the side. Once, twice, 3 times. In the end, the dilapidated square detector could not bear the humiliation. The Hall thruster went on strike. After ensuring that its propulsion device stopped running, 3 more spherical detectors changed their course. These 3 spherical detectors tightly clamped the body of the square detector and began to slow down slowly. Gradually, under the influence of the spherical detector, the speed of the square detector slowly decreased. Half an hour later, the relaxed voice of LV Yongchang came from the command center. You should all know what's going on. Let's not waste any more time, since everyone is here. Let's start the exploration. Seeing that no one objected, LV Yongchang changed the subject and said to Zero, prepare to capture the probe. 1 AU. Outside. With the joint efforts of the 3 spherical probes, the square probe successfully changed its direction of travel and was accelerated to a high speed that did not belong to it. At this moment, the square probe and the human fleet remained relatively still. This also provided good conditions for the subsequent close-range exploration. Zuan number 2 slowly approached with its mechanical arm waving. Under the gaze of everyone, it steadily grasped the square probe. The mechanical arm retracted into the cabin and brought the probe into the cabin. The electromagnetic wave signals continuously emitted by the square probe were also completely shielded. As soon as they entered the cabin, several robots lifted the probe full of stories onto the dissection table. Several lasers passed by. The tattered shell of the probe was completely shattered, revealing the carefully designed circuit boards and sensors inside. Looking at the image in the holographic projection, the caution in LV Yongchang's eyes dissipated again. The reason is very simple. Although the shape and wiring are different, he can still recognize that this is a detector of a first-level civilization. LV Yongchang frowned, with some doubts in his eyes. How did the detector of a first-level civilization get here? There should be no star system nearby, right? Zero quickly responded. Yes, the nearest star system is 5 light years away. Maybe. Hebelin's voice came from the side, same as the Voyager probe sent by humans before. LV Yongchang pondered for a moment and nodded silently. At present, this is the only possibility. Fang Zhu looked at the flashing red working indicator light and suddenly asked, has the other party responded to our information? At present, no information has been received. LV Yongchang glanced at the detection data and found that the detector was still emitting electromagnetic waves. He said nonchalantly, this is normal. The other party should not have mastered the long-distance communication technology and is still using electromagnetic waves to communicate. Zero. Are you sure these electromagnetic waves have not been transmitted? For safety, LV Yongchang confirmed it again. At present, no abnormal electromagnetic wave signals have been found outside Zuan. Second, LV Yongchang nodded with satisfaction. Continue to disassemble. Be as careful as possible. This is an antique, perhaps, because he confirmed that the opponent's strength was not as good as his. LV Yongchang's mood became relaxed, and he even made a little joke. The laser with appropriate power passed across the surface of the detector and slowly cut the detector open. Hall thruster, small fusion reactor. It is somewhat similar to the second generation Hall thruster. LV Yongchang just glanced at it and lost interest. It's too backward. Just as he was about to turn around and sit down, a strange device attracted his attention. A small black box was quietly embedded in the cut shell of the detector. Just at a glance, he found the abnormality. Compared with the surrounding components, the black box seemed out of place. Its workmanship is completely different from the detector. LV Yongchang paused, and his face suddenly became serious. Zero. Focus on checking the black box. The laser of the same power passed by. There was nothing wrong with the black box. LV Yongchang's face changed drastically. It's bad. This is definitely not the creation of a first level civilization. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.